Meeting to order. Ms. Huerta, can you call the roll? Present.
Here.
Mostly here.
Here. Not here. 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 Here.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Another warm welcome.
Good morning.
Saturday morning. Your spouse said, where are you going? You said, I'm going to go make the world a safer place for democracy this morning. Right? Something close to that? Well, we have a full agenda today, intended to be wrapped up by 11:30 at the latest. We really have three dimensions to review today. One is not necessarily on the agenda, but I wanted to just cover, you have forthcoming to you the evaluation of the city manager, and I was asked to just give you a general overview about the whole function of doing that. For some of you, it may be the very first time that you've been involved with the evaluation of the city manager, and I wrote down some notes just so I wouldn't miss this, but just to share with you some thoughts about this. Really what you're trying to accomplish on this evaluation is clarity about roles, some of what we covered yesterday, expectations, the shared vision, what the city manager on your behalf is trying to accomplish. We understand it can't be 9 different dimensions being pulled in nine different ways. Then it's hard to be successful. And as the city manager goes, so goes the council, and as the council goes, so goes the city manager. There's a strong partnership, that alignment of expectations. And so I think that's where you're going to continually, or you're going to find, much like we talked about yesterday or yesterday morning about the group, is how do you reconcile their shared expectations? Some is about what's accomplished as well as how it's accomplished. So some things you might want to think about as you go through that process is the frequency of interaction that the city manager is having with you and how that helps you be successful. His role as a leader to the organization, his interaction with other key partners in the community, whether it's the other cities in the metropolitan area, the port, the counties, any other sort of organization, he's working on your behalf trying to help move your agenda items forward. His relationship with his staff and how that's working, the operational side, the leadership side. His own approach with each of you and all of you. Some of this is about the individual, the incumbent. It's also about his role working on your behalf and trying to work through that. Having been a recipient of an evaluation, I was a city manager, I can tell you it's sometimes a simple process that gets too complicated. And I know Peter's been through this many times in his career. So I would just encourage you, especially the first go around for some of you as doing the evaluation, I would try to keep it simple. It's always easier to add things on later on as you get more comfortable in your role and his partnership with you. But I would not try to overcomplicate it. Sometimes less is more. So it's not about having 38 categories. It may be about having a handful of categories and having conversations. And just as a final kind of a rule of thumb as good practice, and this is where we talked about yesterday, that reciprocity. And this is kind of delicate to say, but I'll go ahead and share it with the group. It's really important going forward to maintain trust in that partnership, that you don't wait to bring something up until that discussion. Because then it's the equivalent of gotcha. And that's not a good way to build that sustaining relationship. That's that communication ongoing, both from the manager to you and you to the manager. I'm just sharing that with you because sometimes that happens and it's not good. It doesn't help the relationship. So I was just asked to provide some general comments. I know that process is forthcoming. I hope that was helpful just to try to get your head around it. There is a lot of information that's produced by the International City County Managers Association, which Peter's a member of. I'm a member of as a sort of a corporate member. They provide a lot of information to help councils conduct their evaluations with their city managers. So there's content out there. I don't know if TCMA provides some of that. The Texas City Managers, they may provide content as well. So it's not as though there's that you're working from a blank page in that sense. There's a lot of good content out there. Some of you have been through this before. So I hope you receive that in the spirit that I offer it to you. Just to try to make sure that a lot of it's about communication, frequency, impact, about what he's doing on your behalf. So, okay, I hope that was helpful. All right. Short and sweet. Now we're going to, hopefully everybody did their homework. Anybody stay up late cramming for the test today? Apparently there was a lot of cramming at the baseball game, so I understood. So
Guilty.
how was the game?
Excellent. Extra innings, walk-off home run. The benches cleared at one point.
Oh, wow.
The officiating was horrible. We booed them. It was a great game.
Sounds wonderful.
Wonderful game. Fireworks at the end.
Sounds like there was fireworks throughout the evening, so. Well, hopefully you had a chance to review the mission statement. And what we want to do today is just examine it, not in depth. We don't want to wordsmith it, but try to find out, you as a group, the relevance of this mission statement. And I'll just read it for those of you that may be, I know this is being recorded, so I'll say it out loud for those people that might be listening or at some point listen to this. The mission of the city of Corpus Christi, Texas is to deliver municipal services which meet the vital health, safety, and general welfare needs of the residents and which sustain and improve their quality of life. As we work to achieve this mission, we will employ fiscal discipline, continuous improvement, first-rate customer services, and straightforward communications. In this work, we will tolerate no mediocrity. Which, by the way, this is on page 14 of your materials.
Do you have any extra copies, Patrick?
I can tear mine off.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, mine's missing.
It's also, if you have the agenda, I don't know if you have that.
Oh, the agenda's missing. is
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
saying. I left it here.
I'll use my agenda to reference it, just so I have it. So what are your thoughts about that mission statement? Remember, a vision is where you're going, a destination you never achieve.
is that the whole agenda?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. A vision is a destination that you never really achieve, which, from what I understand, the city doesn't currently have a vision statement. However, the mission is sort of how you get there. So the mission is more the mechanical side. The easy part of a mission statement is the adoption. The hard part is executing it, is living up to it. It should be a filter by which you make decisions as a governing body. Does this match with your mission statement? It should be fairly descriptive in that sense. I'm curious to know just your thoughts about this mission statement. Is it still relevant? Does it need to be reworked? We don't want to spend time today necessarily reworking it. We just thought we'd give you an opportunity to scrub it.
It seems mediocre.
Okay? What about it seems mediocre?
It's just, it just seems very basic, and maybe that's what you need, is just basic, you know.
What's it lacking, do you
Yeah.
think?
It's lacking like some customization, right?
Or
I
like
mean,
vision.
Yeah, the custom, everybody. this is
Yeah, it's terrible.
mission statement.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's not.
That's what it feels
It's
like,
just
it's
right out of a
lacking
textbook or
vision.
something, you know?
Lacking vision, okay.
It needs some localized,
This one basically says we're gonna keep the water and sewer running and
needs some localized language.
Okay.
So this could be anywhere USA, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Sounds fancy.
Localize it.
Yeah, it's gonna be localized, and this could be,
You know, take out Corpus Christi, you could say it for everybody.
what's that?
Yeah.
If you
Right.
remove the
Right.
city of Corpus Christi in the first statement,
Yeah.
you could drop it anywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's what I
generic.
mean. It needs to be customized to us. Anyone can use this, I think.
It should have some level of inspiration, I think, to your points, right? It should have a little bit of lift there. Vision definitely should have, and a vision is more about poetry.
It doesn't describe Corpus Christi.
I agree, though, it's not that great.
It really doesn't.
I don't think we really care too much. But it's exactly what Mike said.
It's been around, I think, that was mentioned yesterday, since 2012, is that right? Is that something like that? So it's not uncommon for cities to revisit their vision and missions, you know, every so often and say it's time to review it, time to scrub it. Sometimes they summarily discard it and start fresh. Sometimes they do a little bit of spit polish. It really depends, especially if people that have been in council were around when it was created. But it sounds like this was created before the tenure of anybody on this council. So people don't necessarily have recall, right?
No, it was created when some of us were on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
In fact, a lot of us.
Really?
When Macomb was mayor.
This one?
No, it was not.
Said 2012.
Was it when you were on?
I read it out when I ran for council initially.
He,
How
We
we work.
reworked it in one of these meetings.
No,
oh, this council?
no,
No,
this
we
council did
discussed
not.
reworking
I
it.
take it back, it sounds great.
It's actually,
Good job, guys.
and really reading it.
We
Anyway,
may not have made this one, but we definitely discussed reworking it
Okay.
that's all right.
in an exact environment like that.
Tell us what you really think. Yeah.
Maybe we did.
That's why I was laughing as soon as all these comments were popping up. Maybe we said the same thing, I can't remember.
Trying not to.
The value of a mission statement beyond the creation is the implementation and the activation of it. So if it's not being used, you don't find it relevant, then it's not being used. And there's a missed opportunity. Better to not have one that you find relevant than to have one that you don't find, or better to not use it if you don't find it relevant and to refresh it at some point or discard it and start from fresh. I think the community has an opportunity in front of it to revisit its vision, but also factoring in how do you want to gain input from your residents into that visioning. A lot of communities go through a fairly elaborate process to engage the public, both in person and online, to say what do they want to see as the future. So I'm just sharing that with you. That may be something you want to consider in the next year or so. Go through a visioning process. Because it's a great way to engage residents around something that is often about the future, and it's often reflective of their appetite, much of what you talked about yesterday. So it would seem as though the mission statement right now is not necessarily going to help you in the next segment, which is to focus on your policy goals. Because that's where it should be a touchstone. It is kind of a flushing out of the best of your intentions. But if you don't find it necessarily relevant, then let's not use it. Because then it's a constraint that no one has any skin in the game for it. Again, people, when they created it, probably had the best of intentions trying to create it. And maybe that at the time, it was a catapult from what the previous mission was. I don't know. And maybe it served its time, and then it's time to refresh it. So, thoughts about it?
Well, it seems like a mission statement should change all the time. You know, like I consider part of our mission now is securing, a reliable water source. But if that's done, then you go on to another mission, or something else becomes part of the mission. Like
Right.
as you achieve the things that you want to do, you have new things that you want to do.
Well, I would say, sort of to separate that, is that, securing water is more of a goal to help you achieve your mission. Your mission is, let's just say, it's to improve the quality of life. Let's just say that generically. How do you improve the quality of life? You secure water. That's a goal. There are objectives to secure that. So, mission statement, we can sort of dissect it. But the key here is I'm just trying to get your appetite. I have no skin in the game here. Whether you use it, great. If you don't, great. It's all up to you.
Well, so that goes back to the plainness of the statement. I mean, is it supposed to be like this, where it's just a general, very broad, very general statement?
It should be a little bit more descriptive and prescriptive, but it should last more than a year or so, because your mission as community builders doesn't really change. The objectives do, the goals do, but what you're trying to accomplish is more of outcomes, and the objectives help you achieve that outcome. But if your mission changes every year, it's really hard to have continuity of operations, because then you're getting whiplash. Like, this is our mission this year. Again, I would, when you think about it, look at it this way. If this helps, just as a diagram, and I'll just do it like this. There's the vision. There's the mission to help you execute it. There are the values. We didn't even discuss that sort of bind the community together, bind the council together. In order to achieve the mission, you have goals. And from the goals, you have objectives. And with the objectives, you have tasks. And this is in the vernacular, sort of the strategic planning concept, right? You're trying to achieve the mission by trying to achieve the vision by executing the mission. And how do you do that? You have goals, which you're going to discuss. How do you achieve the goals? You specify objectives. And in order to achieve the objectives, you have tasks. I hope that helped. That's just a really basic diagram. So we don't mix right? Sometimes there's a mixing. So today, what we're trying to focus on, in some respects, is the what of the goals. As you all talked about yesterday, you talked about goals and policies. And that's part of the same ecosystem. Yes?
in looking at the mission statements, I looked at some other cities, and I thought one that the city of Frisco actually had a really good one. It says, "We work to deliver the highest quality services for our residents, customers, and visitors. We strive to understand the needs of our citizens and treat everyone fairly, consistently, and responsibly." So, and then other ones were just one sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, Sugarland had one sentence: "To enhance the quality of life in the community by the commitment to excellence in the delivery of public service."
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
That's a good one.
right, just simple, you know, the overall goal. So they had, I mean, those are the ones I thought were kind of the best. Some were flowery, more flowery than that, but the ones that struck to it in terms of community, quality of life, and responsiveness and treating people fairly. I know I've said that personally myself, so. Is that kind of what you're thinking of, or?
Well, I mean, again, I'm just trying to share this with you. This is your mission statement. We wanted to take time to discuss it today, but not wordsmith it. Yes, Councilmember. Thank you for sharing that.
You know, one thing that I think that needs to be recognized, and I think particularly this year, is we're the catalyst for the region. The city of Corpus Christi is the catalyst for the region. In the past, and it's come up again this last time, is the other governmental entities are very territorial, and it's a stay in your lane type of thing. But we're in 3 counties now, and all those other communities like Austin and San Antonio, all those other communities around, they thrive on that catalyst, and we need to recognize that. And so in the power structure, it's been very difficult. And in the past, all these communities outside, oh, those people in Corpus, you know, they think they got it going on. It was an adversarial deal, and I think that has to be part of our mission, to recognize that we're the catalyst, that we need to work hand in hand. I go back to Peter's done a great job as far as the regional water provider, to make everybody available to when they have their challenges as well, even though it's on a lower municipal level. So I think in putting the vision together, the entire region will prosper from that.
Okay. Thoughts about that? The city's role? I mean, it's there. If you want to be the catalyst, right? It's not going to be given to you. You have to earn that all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, from what I've gathered, is you're trying to reset your influence in the region, both with other jurisdictions as well as with your residents. You're taking a more assertive role as you move the community forward. That sometimes, as you know, ruffles people's feathers because they sort of size you up. They assign you a role. As you kind of bust through that, it's to other people, it's a little bit not always so welcome. Remember, not everybody's for progress, especially those people who stand to gain the most by maintaining the status quo, even when the status quo has lost its status. But some people hang their hat onto that. So the more assertive you get, the more unified you are as a group. To other jurisdictions, they may see that not necessarily as an opportunity. You all see it because you have that opportunity, but it's what you earn all the time. And let's be clear, a mission statement is not an ad tagline. It's not an advertising tagline like, you know, visit Corpus Christi and enjoy the, that's an advertising tagline. That's not the mission statement. I'm just sharing that with you because people try to think there's advertising and then there's mission statements. They are not one and the same. So the CVB might have about visit Corpus Christi and having a great adventure, right? We get the difference. That's an ad tagline. This is about mission. So it would seem as though there's an appetite to maybe revisit this mission statement at a future session where you have a chance to really spend some quality time doing some pre-work. I work with a lot of organizations where there's some pre-work to do. We look at a lot of other cities. We may even have the group divided into smaller groups and really spend some time on the mission and the vision. But we want to just scrub it today, and it sounds like there's not a lot of advocacy to keep it. And that's okay. You know, it's yours. And again, it's not uncommon that these things are revisited and sometimes just out with the old and then you refresh it. Okay? It's no different than you making a policy that sometimes is inconsistent with your predecessors. It's like they made the decision at that time, but now times have changed and we're making a different decision. So, does that sound, again, I'm just trying to summarize. That's what I'm hearing. I don't hear anybody falling on their sword to say keep it.
No,
Michael?
I don't think.
I didn't never
Definitely
say I
don't
wanted
keep
to keep it. I just said it was discussed in the
Yeah.
past, and I'm pretty sure we had something to do with the development of it.
Yeah.
But we can look at the records.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll make those notes. All right. Now, the next segment, which is on page 15 of your materials, this is the list. These items on this list are those that came up during my pre-session phone calls when I asked each of you what areas you wanted to talk about in regards to goals, potential goals. This is a little bit like making spaghetti. So it's throwing things up on the wall to see what sticks. I'm going to invite Peter and whoever he chooses to have these conversations with you as you talk about these items. These are things that are not in my wheelhouse. I'm really just trying to keep the conversation moving. Some of these were talked about yesterday at length, as Peter addressed in his update about what's in the queue. So I'm going to sort of tag team with Peter and members of his staff as you all want to have more questions about these. If there was something that was not addressed yesterday during his update, if there's something that he talked about yesterday that you'd like to discuss, pressing your foot on the gas and moving sooner, faster. If there are items that he talked about yesterday that you think you want to pump the brakes and say maybe we should slow down. If there were items that he didn't mention in his update that you believe are worthwhile to discuss today. I will tell you the challenge that a lot of cities have is they're kind of pregnant. They have their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. It's hard to make progress when you have your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. They're waiting for perfection. That's not the gauge. So some of this is about smart risk-taking. Some of these things you're doing that Peter mentioned yesterday, some of those areas you've not necessarily done before. So it's about managing risk in a prudent way, in a thoughtful way. But some of those items, there's no guarantee because it's not a linear process. I'm just sharing that with you. Some of these are very contextual, based on the circumstances, based on the stakeholders. So I'm just going to open this up. Several of you mentioned under infrastructure, water. Peter gave an extensive update yesterday about water. Were there other items that he did not talk about that you want to talk about regarding water? Yes.
You know, I think we all agree that finding a future water supply or alternative water supply is all in need. It's the means to get to that. And so when we do that, I want to make sure that it's kind of general in the sense because we still haven't agreed as to how to get there. And I don't know how to best describe that, but it's just the choice on what we make and what the ramifications are, not only for now, but in the future. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are still tough decisions. As Peter mentioned yesterday, you have some tough policy decisions on the horizon. You know, that's kind of common in local government, right? There's always some issues out there that you're trying to tackle where you have well-intentioned, but you don't know exactly how it's going to work, and you have to sort of arrive in agreement of council that this is the best of those choices, more of that divergent thinking. So there's a lot of options, which is the most reasonable, which is the most politically supported, maybe sometimes which is the most practical. A lot of factors go into that discussion. Thoughts about this whole notion of water? It's not really sexy till it's not there. We know that, right? The people take it for granted. Well, they just do, right?
Yeah.
To them, they're paying more for the same thing. It's clean water. Yes.
So do you want something like a statement like
No, I just want you to have a discussion about if there were items that Peter talked about yesterday that you want to have a discussion about further, if there were things that he did not talk about regarding water that you want to talk about. So it's really up to all of you what you want to talk about in regards to water. We're not trying to make decisions today. We're not trying to project plan today. But it's to try to exchange ideas about, items on water. There were several items on the update yesterday.
Well,
We're taking too long to get desal, in my opinion.
I'm sorry?
So we're taking too long to get desalination, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess for me, like I said yesterday, I would like to see the council come to some consensus about the direction we're going to take, and I don't feel we have that direction now. I think we have a lot of ideals on the table. We've had some discussions. We've had a workshop where we were, flooded with information. And we have to, as the leaders of this community, come up with, for lack of a better term, a mission statement with respect to our goals for a sustainable water supply. And we need to do that sooner rather than later, because we're 5 months into this deal. We only get 2 years, and before you know it, we're all gonna be running for reelection, and when we're running for reelection, nobody makes a decision about anything. So I would hope that before the end of 2021, we have that consensus about our direction on a sustainable future water supply.
Is that sort of what you, how do you see the sequence?
Yeah, we're working with the mayor to bring the next item to city council, which is the real estate and other choices at the 2 locations. I talked to Councilman Hernandez, I know he's thinks we should go in a different direction, but we can bring to city council the choice of, we've been working on Broadway real estate acquisition, the Broadway site or the Inner Harbor site. And that was the staff's intention or plan based on working with the prior council, which is present to council the real estate option and the power purchase option with AEP. Of the 200+ million that the Texas Water Development Board has already approved for the city through a loan, 11 million of that has been given to the city already. And that money is used to finalize contingent real estate contracts, contingent on getting the permits. So that had been the direction, but what I've asked staff to do is develop analysis that would show what would the other location mean in terms of real estate acquisition, and how would we get that water into the distribution system, because it would have a higher financial impact. So we're going to show the council that, so you can have a choice. We can say, let's pursue the Inner Harbor real estate, or no, let's do the La Quinta real estate instead. And we'll show the council what each means from a financial and distribution standpoint. So we can do that in, I think, 30 days or less, if the council desires. That would be one way to advance it. We need a site. There's alternative options of putting an RFP out to see who would build the plant, who would operate it, how would we go about that. But in either case, real estate would be needed for somebody, either us or a private firm. And those 2 sites are the locations that are in the permits. So once you submit those permits to TCEQ, it's that site, it's that location. That permits has a lot of science and analysis based on that exact location. So you can't submit the permit and then say, oh, you know what, we're going to go with this other site, it's kind of close. You'd have to resubmit the entire permit process, which takes over a year. So those 2 real estate sites is really the question. I know at the workshop we got some good feedback from the council. There's new council members that are saying, you know what, maybe we don't like the Inner Harbor site as the first choice. Let's look at the La Quinta. It's bigger, it maybe has less environmental issue. So we can do that. Both permits at TCQ, all 4, because there's 2 intake and 2 outtake. All 4 are being reviewed right now, and we don't know which one will be done first. There's different divisions, different people at TCQ working on them, but they'll both be done around the same time. So the question really is, what real estate choice do we want to pursue first? We're not going to do both. We knew that all along. Sure. Based on that last work session we had on DCEL, I think that was the takeaway for me anyway, which is that there's new council members that are saying we don't think the Inner Harbor is our first choice. We like La Quinta better, and that's fine. And we'll show the impact financially and from a distribution standpoint if that's the direction we go.
I'm assuming, Peter, we could make any of those real estate purchases subject to our ability to obtain a permit.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do, right? That's the plan. We don't want to. I mean, they're not overly costly, but still, it would be a waste of money if they.
Yeah, last thing we want to do is buy a piece of real estate and then not be able to use it.
Exactly, right. Yeah, they'd be contingent
We're seeing
contracts.
that real estate that you buy on, whether it's Inner Harbor or La Quinta, is valuable property. I mean, it's resellable and.
Right.
But, well, I think that's fine. I just want to see us take a step forward doing
Yeah.
something. And we need to do that as soon as possible.
I agree.
Councilmember Barrera?
Well, I think what I would prefer is that there be a regular update. At the very least, once a month. And the reason being is, you know, you just made a statement that said some of the new council members, well, that's a policy direction
Yeah.
that every council member should be aware of that way, because once again, that's our role as we represent our district or the entire city, to be able to do that versus a minority or a small group or a small squeaky wheel. So I would prefer, I'd like to see a timeline with milestones, or so that way we understand whether we're ahead or behind schedule, and that way if there's an update, we find out, okay, what's the hiccup, where's the bottleneck, and do we need to make decisions to move that forward? And the reason being is it's good for us to be refreshed. Example, somebody came to me, Bill Pettis, came up to me the other day. He's in my building. He's talking to the Evangeline people.
Yeah.
And I gotta go back and say, here's the cost, here's what they showed us. Because they still put out collateral that's still trying to sell their objective. So, you know, I had to go back, do some research or whatever. I didn't wanna waste staff time. I knew I had it. So I provided all that for him, and then all of a sudden he gets off. And so what happens is that we're all, have to be everything to everybody. And I know I'm a mess, and I can't keep track of everything. My mind only has so much capacity. And so I have to go back and get refreshed on the facts, not the alternative facts or the embellished facts, or like grant writers, you know. So that's one reason. You come to us at least once a month and tell us what the status is. Because as soon as I walk out, I'm gonna forget about, you know, 80% of what you just told us.
I think it ought to be weekly.
Weekly's fine with me too. I just
Or maybe
don't.
every 2 weeks.
If the, you know,
Well,
just
it's not
like
a bad
we were
idea.
having updates
Yeah.
about COVID, to me, this is as important
Yeah.
as our attempts to get our hands around the COVID issue.
Yeah, you're
We
right,
have to
Councilman.
get and so we have to show the community that we are focused on
Yeah.
this. Because everybody knows this is a huge issue for this city on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, frankly, you know.
Yeah, and I think.
And then, but we do need sorry to interrupt, we do need the council as a body to decide on location, because it was during the work session, Councilman Barrera, where the council had an open discussion about.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember
Yeah,
that.
so that's an important, kind of new, revelation, if you will, so we need to,
But
we gotta decide on what, because we have real estate, we're negotiating to buy real estate contingent on on permits. But if we don't want to use the Inner Harbor location, we need to know that so we can transition our efforts to the other location, in terms of a real estate acquisition.
Well, at the same time, you can put a slot on our executive session so that if we are going to discuss real estate purchases, we
Yeah.
can do that.
That was the
We need
plan,
to,
right?
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's great. We just need to be aware. And like I said, you know, I make these comments such as the devil never sleeps. And that's one reason why, if it's there weekly or once a month, I'm fine with weekly, but you know me, I don't like to make more work for you guys. But you're doing the work anyway, and if all you're
Yeah.
doing is just giving us an update,
Right.
then that way we can go back and have the facts to be able to explain or to question and say, okay, this is where I'm opposed to this, or this is my concern, or this is how I feel, great, we're on track, this is where I want to go. That allows us all to be able to have a voice on a regular basis versus the other networks that are coming after us.
Yeah.
Because our problem is also political,
Yeah.
and you feel that heat as well. So anyway,
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to interject here. In terms of the property, we're getting a false choice. It's not just a choice between
Hey, Gil,
property
can you
location.
talk through your mic?
It's a false choice. It's not just about the choice of property locations, whether La Quinta or the Inner Harbor. It's how we do this. What we're going down this path is of a design build or design bid build type path where it's either a choice of that or nothing. We should open it up a little bit more to have some other options, like public-private partnerships, to where we bring a partner in beforehand, so we can have some other expertise of somebody that actually built a desal plant, not Friesen Nichols, specifically, and then have some other options as to how to acquire it. I mean, what we're talking about is borrowing $222 million, even though it's a low interest rate. If if it's gonna cost us twice as much to build it on our own, that's not necessarily savings. So I wanna make sure that we're looking at all options in terms of even, and then maybe not even the possibility of having them not running a plant at all. I mean, we talked about this in terms of preventive maintenance. We are way behind in taking care of the stuff we already have. To add a $222 million plant on top of that is a lot to add to the overall responsibility, not only of our staff, but as a city. So I want to make sure that we're looking at all options, multiple options, to be able to choose from and base that on the cost per 1,000 gallons. And not only that, but long-term maintenance, long-term supply chain. Like if we bring in a partner that is that does this, because there's only two seawater desal plants in the nation that are for municipal water. We don't have a lot of expertise that are just out there to bring them to Corpus Christi. So there's a lot of things to consider just beside whether or not to build a plant or not to, or how. So I want to make sure that we bring as much expertise and give us as much options to make those decisions as possible. I just don't want us to go down this false choice of it is design, build, or nothing. And that's the choices we get to vote on, because that is a false choice.
No, I don't disagree with that, Gil. We need to look at all those options, but we have to get started. We have to.
Well,
we have to do something.
then we should put out an RFP to get that in there, so we can get some
No, but
input as to
You
whether or
have
not it's
discussed
our
that. Before we can put out an RFP, we have to have somebody tell us, we've got a new water czar now. And I'm hoping he's gonna bring to us some guidance and expertise on how we move forward with respect to putting an RFP together, because now we would be totally dependent upon Freeze Nichols designing an RFP for us, from my perspective. And I'm not sure that's what we wanna do. I've always felt like, from that workshop the other day and listening to all the experts, we sort of need somebody that is in our camp advising us as to, are these experts giving us a straight skinny? Because right now, all I've got is their version. And I like to have my own guy or girl telling me, that's right or that's wrong or whatever. So we have a new water czar now. Hopefully that level of expertise can come to us. But if we want to move forward at looking at a piece of property, I'm okay with that, with the understanding that we still have to make a decision about which route we're going to take. And you're absolutely right. It may or may not be that we're going to own or operate. I'm not a big fan of the city owning and operating a desal plant either. But we have to have somebody that can come in and tell us, here's the path you need to take whichever way you're going to go, or give us the choices of both paths. But I just feel we need a level of expertise to come in and help us with those decisions. And I'm sorry, and I don't mean to insult anybody here that's a fan of Freeze and Nichols, but from my perspective, I sometimes get the feeling they have their thumb on the scale. And I'm not sure that's in our best interest.
I agree with both of you guys. I'm one of the new kids on the block. My biggest issue is, once again, we've spoken about it all day yesterday. Several council members have mentioned this. It's called trust. Okay? I think the issue is trust here. Who do we trust? Who do we believe in? I think that's the big issue. I think that's the issue that's on the table right now. We don't feel like we're getting the proper information to make a $226 million decision. And the city manager and staff need to understand that. That's what we're standing at right now. Because if we were all on board as far as the desal, the decision probably would have been made already. So there's doubt. And that's what we're asking staff and the city manager to come up with several options on this. Everyone knows The harbor is in my district, and I'm 100% behind, not behind it being built in the harbor. I have a big issue with that, because my constituents have come up and told me, we don't want it in the harbor. I've voiced it several times, but I don't feel like the workshop we had, I don't think we got the information that we needed. There was a lot of great questions asked in the workshop on desal. We asked a lot of great questions, and not just one, everybody did. Okay? So that just makes it more confusing to people to try to make a good decision on this. This is a top priority project, I get it. We should be moving forward, but we're not getting enough information. You know, Gil brings up a good point. I want to see other options. Why do we have to own it? Why can't someone else buy it and build it and they manage it? We're the distribution center. They can't put any water through our pipelines unless we say we got this 30, 40, 50-year agreement with them. You know, those are the types of things that we need to know. We don't have experts in Corpus Christi on desal. There are none in here. I mean, Freeze and Nichols have never built a plant, but yet we're standing behind them and believing in
Yeah.
them.
Can I, sorry to
You know,
interrupt, can I interrupt
you-
just for a second? So Freeze and Nichols is not building the plant. Freeze and
Well, no, I'm
Nichols,
talking about their expertise, sir.
no, just, Freeze and Nichols is just the, what they call, we've called them the owner's representative. They're just our consultant to get us to the point where we'll have somebody build the plant.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying about expertise, though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We don't have anyone really local that has that great expertise that we can depend on.
Well,
You're right.
know.
You're absolutely right.
Now-
And
There's
that's what I'm,
nobody-
that's what I'm afraid of,
There's
though.
nobody local that has that expertise, and we're listening to too many local outside resources.
You know,
And I can tell you right now that the confidence that I have in the team that we have, I don't always appreciate, let me say, I'm not always satisfied with the responses or with which they move, but I'm more satisfied than I've ever been.
well, I mean,
And I'm confident that staff is not moving us, there's no ill, I think that they're open, they're transparent. I think the challenge is that from a business perspective, they're trying to manage too many things, and they're trying to manage us, which is, I've always said it's difficult to manage 9 prima donnas, you know, and what is it?
Eight.
If anybody's.
Eight. No, eight.
Speak for yourself, speak for yourself.
we already have one premium. But, you know, Roland, I know
But
what
my
you're
point
saying.
is- Wait, if I may, I'm sorry, I know I interrupted you, is that's the thing. We have to listen, you're right, there's no there's no experts locally. So we have to proceed with that information and bring that to the table. And every time we have outside information, take them directly to the manager and say, here's what we're hearing, tell us why we're right or wrong. And if we're not satisfied, well, then we need to let them know. Tell us why we're right or wrong, let's find another resource, whatever the situation is. We can't be listening to all these outside sources that put a bug in our ear, that they take some information that they have from the city, and all of a sudden they tear it apart, they highlight it. Because I can tell you, that's happened to me at least a dozen times already. And, you know, because everybody's chasing after us, $200 million is a lot of money. And then it's gonna be a lot of money to operate over the case of 30 to 40 years. So there's a lot, the devil never sleeps, you know, and we gotta find him. So anyway, my apologies.
Yes,
I could just make one, it's my understanding, we have made no commitments. The only thing that we're doing right now is securing a desal permit. What we're gonna do with that permit after that, are we committed at all?
No, Councilman, we haven't committed to any
So-
entity or location yet.
Yeah, this body or previous bodies have made no commitments on who's gonna own it, who's gonna operate it.
Right.
What we've committed to is getting a permit at 2 locations.
Right. I think a good next step is location, because again, the permit's are site-specific, and the time to get the permit, we submitted ours, I think about a year ago, so it takes a while for TCEQ to approve the permits. So we should pick the location, then we can secure it and at least know that's the site we're going to. Everybody raises a good point. There's been no decision by the council and the staff is not siding either way. There's a lot of choices on how and who and when the plant gets built. There's a lot of choices. We can list them all out here in the paper.
Sure.
We could own it. We could have somebody build it, teach us how to run it, then we own it. They could own it 100% all the time. We could just buy water from them. We could put an RFP out that says, we want a desal plant, we want to buy water from you, you figure it out. It's a 50-year contract. We could do it where they build it, knowing that we're gonna own it at some point, and they teach us how to run it. So, and there's many iterations on all of that. That really, I don't think has been discussed by the council in our meetings. We've talked about location and permits and just the concept of having the desal plant. We've had RFQs, or RFIs, I should say, where most recently those 9 respondents came back to city council and showed their proposals to the city council and included price. We can go over that again. I will say, though, that the cheapest price was desal, and most of the firms, 6 out of the 9, recommended desal, so I think council's set on that, although there is that Evangeline question still that's out there, but their water, the last presentation was more expensive than desal. So we have a lot of things in place. It's just going to that next step. The loan's approved, if we need the loan. The permits are being worked on. I think a good next step could be to have the water staff come in. We do have it, I don't have it with me today, and go over the high-level calendar to include when do we anticipate permits being considered or approved, hopefully by TCEQ.
And if I may, Peter, to some of these points, where we are is still with some unanswered questions, because it isn't as easy as we need, just not that you're implying, but you may assume everyone sitting here has all the questions answered.
Yeah,
And we don't.
right.
There were questions that multiple people asked
Right.
that day at that workshop that still are not answered.
Yeah,
They've not come back. If the direction was given to the experts that were there to speak, well, it was. What they spoke was on the surface. What we needed was more in-depth. Every single one of those bullets, and I said it then, I'll say it again, and I'm sure there's an email out that I have sent to staff with all of you guys saying, this is what I want to know. Don't know those answers. So why aren't we there, Mike? Because all of us are going nuts, right? Doing a million things, as you pointed out, Roland. And I don't know where it's at. I know my questions are out there. I'm not picking a location until I get questions answered that say, here's why the Inner Harbor, being a cul-de-sac, isn't environmentally the best place to put it.
Right.
I don't know that. Is that a fact? I think it is, but I don't know, because I've got to rely on the answers coming back. So we can very well go to the next step. But when I came into this office, the next step was to go get some land. And I said, no, we're not going to get land. No, we've got new council members who don't know even where we are today on this. We have to be, I don't think we're completely briefed completely. And the reason why is because you and I both said, why are we building a desal plant up to 50 if we can build one up to 80 and just one? The answer to that, Mike, was something about the outfall, or whatever. Yes, it was. It was, there could be bigger issues environmentally, maybe so, but I want to know those things.
Yeah,
because just like repairing or building a police academy today is going to cost us whatever it's going to cost us, 10 years from now, it's going to cost us way more. I don't know, but before I make a 200 plus, and by the way, we do not have a price on what this plant is going to cost us. So until someone tells me a real number, not a you qualified for this much, so you can buy up to this much, a real number on what this is going to cost us, because guess what? We're going to be handing that extra to our residents. And you're going to be at the lake, and I'm going to be following my son somewhere, wherever he is, and they're going to get stuck with that. And what is that? That is our responsibility. So there's a lot that isn't answered. And here's what I'm going to do. Tonight, or Monday, I'm going to send everyone the same email, blind copied, saying, send me your specific questions on what you want answered. I don't care how in-depth they are. Everyone's questions come in. And those questions are going to be due back from staff within the week. And then we're going to all get on the same page because I agree with you. You know, we're very busy. Everyone's doing 100 different things. We have to move forward. And right now, the reason we're not is because of unanswered questions.
No, I agree with that, Mayor.
So that's the plan. If anybody would like to add to that plan, please do now. If not, please check your emails. Please put forth what you want, because from here, we are moving forward. And if your questions aren't included, the train left. If they are, we're going to get them answered at all costs. And then we're going to go to the next conversation, which means the next step.
No, and I really, to go along with that, you're absolutely correct. My concern was the same as yours, Mayor. If we're buying a piece of property, I don't want to buy a piece of property that limits our ability for expansion in the future, that we should never do that. And I love Roland's ideal about putting this on the agenda, and I said, he said monthly, I said, let's do it weekly, because the way we get those questions answered is having the ability to do that, because if we go into a meeting and it's not on the agenda, we can't talk about it. And so if we have that, we can ask questions, we can direct staff, we can do whatever we need to do to continue to move this process forward. And when we get to the point where we think we're ready to do an RFP or Q or Z, whatever letter we need to use, we have the information to make an intelligent decision about how we move that process forward.
Right.
But, and Peter, you and I have discussed this, and I just want to say this again in front of the whole council. One of the problems I perceive, and I've met with our water department multiple times, and I think they're a great group of people, and they're very smart, but they have a close-in attitude. And we have to get to the point, and I'm hoping our new guy is going to help that. We have to get to the point where we have a broader perspective about how we address this problem.
Right.
And so for me, that's a big issue.
Okay, yeah, I hear you, and I did tell, so that we're prepared to show Mayor and Councilman Pusley and others, we're preparing to show the analysis on the two locations.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I told staff after you and I talked, right? We're not going to limit the conversation with the council on one location.
Okay.
We have two locations. Those are the two permits that are being evaluated by TCEQ. So at least we're down to two sites, but we do need direction on which one. And we'll show you the pros and cons of each location. That's what they're working on right now. We're also working on, the mayor knows this, the 3 new council members after that workshop did have a lot of questions, like Councilman Lermer and you, Pusley, and Martinez. And so staff is working to get your questions. I think they already started with Mike Murphy, who's here, engaging you. And the plan was to get those questions answered and have a meeting with Freeze and Nichols, who is our agent helping us. So that's in the works, Mayor, but do send that out because we want to know who else has questions, and we'll get those questions
and I
answered.
think the message to Freeze and Nichols needs to be the same message. They need to have a broader perspective about how we address this problem.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that are going to help us answer that question or give you the pros and cons of each location.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know,
And that's fine, because.
I'm sorry, I have to ask, the thing with Freeze and Nichols is they've been recommending a design build from the get-go. It's not a choice just between La Quinta
Yeah,
and.
we'll tell them to
Broaden it out and some other options. And, you know, I was really disappointed in that water workshop, especially towards the end when I don't even know his name. Was discouraging doing an RFP to find out other information because it was too much work.
Right.
That was ridiculous.
It is.
Look, it's not just whether we decide to build something in one location or another. We've got to think of the long-term implications, the long-term cost, the long-term operations of this desal plant. I mean, the expertise for this is unique. All right, we had a hard time getting our chief operations officer to come here. It took us what, a year or 9 months?
Well, I don't know if it was that long, but we did recruit because it's a unique skill set that
It's
we're
a
looking
unique
for.
skill set,
Yeah,
right?
water,
And now this, you know,
engineering, business.
now we're going to a unique skill set of a unique skill set. So this, we got to look at long-term costs, long-term operations, what it means for us as a community, what capacity you have as a city manager to absorb that as well. There's there's lots of questions that need to be answered that are beyond just the design or the building of, and choosing a location. It's much more broader. You gotta think 10, 20 years down the road. So
And-
that, I just wanna take that into consideration. Thank
And I
you.
appreciate that, and I'm gonna expect to see that in that email.
You will.
Okay, great. So we've got water. There.
Yeah.
Right, didn't we just accomplish this?
We'll,
Let's go.
we'll be done by about 6. No, that was a big issue. That's a good conversation, right? You're trying to knot these threads. You're trying to mitigate risk. There's going to be some risk no matter which choice you move in the direction. Welcome to the world of heavily regulated industry like water, and then we get into the next one, wastewater.
Right.
They're
But I
an
think in these topics, you're asking, do we agree they should be part of the priority? Is that
Well,
correct?
in the sense of what's the substance of that topic, and obviously water is a no, it seems as though it's evident that that's going to be an ongoing policy area that you're going to try to move forward.
So if anyone doesn't agree that water, wastewater, sewer, drainage, airport, and streets should not be a priority, you want to hear that?
Well, and also to allow everybody on council to ask questions, much like you just did, what's the nature of this? And remember, Peter gave updates yesterday on several of these items.
Right.
Were there questions that may have occurred to people last night or this morning about those items that you want to have answered by Peter or a member of staff today? Because if not,
Yeah.
then the update that Peter gave is going to be moving forward,
Right.
right? With those, some of those are deadlines. This is a chance to scrub it so it doesn't come back before you in October and people go, well, when did that happen?
Right. So does anyone, and that was very good, you know, the briefing from Peter on all of these here listed, which we pretty much stayed on top of all of this. So I think everyone's pretty well versed on where we are on all of these, but if anyone has anything to add
Right.
or ask in
Yeah.
regards to,
Yes.
I think, first of all, I think that Peter does a great job. He started his monthly meetings with each district or each councilman. And these are things that we cover that's in
Right.
each of our districts. And I think that in itself helps me a lot
Yeah.
to be able to answer questions out to the constituents.
Yeah.
That's very important, and I greatly appreciate that, Peter.
Yeah, they're helpful.
Hopefully, we
Yes,
don't
sir.
get into another pandemic that we can't do that.
Right,
I want
yeah.
to keep moving forward on that, because that's a big help.
Yeah.
You know, we discuss this on a monthly basis, and his door's always open. If I have a question, I can just walk in
Absolutely.
and talk to him and ask him about questions that people ask.
Right.
That's the importance of this whole discussion. These topics that are here,
there.
it's, Peter's done an excellent job of covering everything that's basically here from what I see. But we've known that. and
Well, we
that-
just
that-
want to make sure that you don't need to add anything to it or have question to it, because that's exactly the point, is that he's already moving forward on these. So if there's anything we need to add or would like for him to,
Got a
you know,
question?
change or whatever, that's what we want to hear.
Hold on a second, Councilor.
Just about drainage, I think they have done an excellent job with drainage, light years ahead of where they were before. By the way, I apologize about, no pressure on the water stuff. On the drainage situation, we have done an excellent job, especially thanks to Councilman Smith being able to pinpoint some of the areas of the city that need a little bit of help. I think that y'all done such a good job with drainage that the focus actually needs to be in particular areas now, instead of throughout the whole city, because y'all have been able to clear up a lot of the situations throughout the whole city, so maybe pinpoint
Well,
drainage.
and to your point, that was going to be my
I don't know
next
how to
point.
necessarily
What I would
say
like
this
to add to
correctly.
this, no, but what I would like to add to this specifically is the OSO and Flower Bluff.
Also in Flower Bluff?
And I know we're addressing, with some grant money, the Oso Creek,
Yeah.
right? But that entire area, I mean, we're talking,
For drainage?
40
You're
million,
talking about
yeah.
For drainage?
Right.
Okay.
right?
Also was on my mind.
The
so
OSO's huge, and we need to put some focus on that. Again, I know we're looking for grant money or applying, but that's huge, as is Flower Bluff. Flower Bluff must be addressed.
For drainage, right? You're talking about stormwater
Yes.
drainage?
Yes.
Then I also want to say that the previous council, I can't remember who was, I just remember being in on the conversation, thought of some of the drainage for downtown on putting the, remember when we talked about putting the nets out there and they told us no?
Yeah, the
And
garbage.
then y'all ended
yeah.
up doing it 2 or 3 years later.
Right.
Great job.
Right,
I'm
right.
so happy.
Yeah, yeah. so
The
that's
catchment stuff, right, to catch the floatable, to catch the, yes.
Yeah, no, I
that's
think
underway.
That's
Great.
done.
Right.
Check.
Yeah.
So, as regard to all this, and this is something I added yesterday, was the aspect of asset lifecycle management and preventive maintenance. All this is all nice to repair and fix, but if you don't maintain it, you're gonna be in the same place 20 years from now. So, above everything else, and it's consistent for all of it, is ensuring that we take care of what we have and implementing Maximo, or putting all the equipment listed into Maximo. I know it's not sexy, to your point, but, and it's tedious, because you have to enter it all into, and populate all the cells with it, and to get all the information. But it's gotta be something that has to be done in order to make sure we maintain this over a long period of time, because we have a lot to take care of.
Yeah, and I would, you know, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I'm gonna go to this sheet. If I can find it. When you talked about, you know, maintaining infrastructure is a must. You have an obligation to the residents of this community. That's not optional, not only to invest, but to maintain, to ensure compliance, to make sure it's easily, or it's healthy, and the health and safety and welfare of the community. So whether it's water, wastewater, stormwater, that's sort of front and center. And the challenge there is sometimes it's not always so sexy to the public about raising rates, because they think they're paying more for getting the same thing. But when you're part of a customer base and you're a ratepayer, you are paying to just ensure compliance and the availability. I know that's, again, not very appealing to people, but that's where sometimes councils struggle, is they don't want to raise rates and they just
Right.
kick the can, and then they don't, and then they don't. I'm just sharing that about infrastructure, that you're always trying to invest and reinvest and invest and reinvest just to keep it going, if you will, because it's an expensive enterprise.
Well, Patrick, it's even before that, right? We have to lay the foundation in order to even do the
Right.
preventive maintenance, right? If you
gotta
don't
have
have the structure, the infrastructure to do it, you can't even, it's too much to manage just by a spreadsheet.
Right.
You've got to have that system in place, and, you know, if we don't do that, we're going to be spinning our wheels.
Mayor, did you have
Yeah,
something?
no, Mr. Smith had a
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry.
Did you not?
Yes, Councilman.
Did you have
Yeah,
one? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I want to quickly go back to drainage. So from a long term, that our new drainage way is the OSO. All the expansion of the city is heading on that south side. So that our emphasis on what we're doing right now, those grants in place, on the channel, on the vegetation there. I was looking at the OSO stream flow on this last rain, and because we're getting higher peak flows in there, we put more and more stress on that. So I just, kind of my 2 cents is how important that long-term we're strategically looking at the OSO and managing that. You know, that is our constraint and where everything in new growth heads.
Okay. There's, just to clarify, the grants, there's 2 grants. One is the grant for the Greenwood,
Yeah.
what is it called, the La Boya Creek in that Greenwood
Yeah.
area. That's a grant the city has and has been approved for. There's the Flower Bluff Neighborhood Association, or what's their name?
Yeah,
Shirley.
well, there's another one on the channel, the OSO channel itself.
Right, I think we did.
Looking at dredging it, that's our
Yeah.
critical, that's where we're gonna see issues in the future. If the OSO continues to fill in, if
Yeah.
vegetation continues to
You're
grow
right.
along the banks, the OSO is it is our drainage point. And,
Right, that grant we applied for as well, Steve, right? That-
Yeah,
the
yeah,
OS
we've
the
got a
restoration
grant
one?
out there.
And then the other grants are to restore the hike, kind of the hike and bike trails,
Mhm.
and that's the part, that's the Flower Bluff Neighborhood Association is
Yeah.
working on those,
Yeah.
so.
And Peter, if you would, give us an update on, and we'll move on, because I know this isn't about discussing one thing, but what the grant, the total cost of the whole OSO, addressing it for, you know, for drainage.
Yeah.
I think it's 40s, somewhere in the 40s, and then where we are. You know, I think, did we get 11 or not? Not yet. Did we apply for 11, or did we? We applied for.
We applied for, right, we submitted a grant application to do some
Right.
restoration
Okay.
work of a section
Just-
of the
yeah.
OSO. Right,
But
that was,
just an update on that.
okay, we'll get you an update on that
Okay,
one.
great. But yeah, you put Flower Bluff and Oso on there.
Yeah, we have
Okay, great.
Flower Bluff drainage, right, and then, and then the OSO assessment for
Great,
drainage as well.
right, okay.
Anything else on, anything on wastewater that you wanted to discuss from Peter's update, or maybe was not discussed? Anything else on wastewater, sewer? Airport, you all talked about yesterday, expanding air service as an economic investment. Peter gave an update, sort of what's on the horizon. Is there anything else about the airport you wanted to discuss that you think needs to be factored into moving it forward?
Well, we talked about expanding air service, so just if we could all hear just very quickly, are we making progress on there? What are we doing on the expansion, because it's important to all of
Airport.
us?
Airport?
Yeah.
It's moving forward, right? Things are moving forward at the airport?
Yes, they are. So yesterday, we put a media release out where the flights
Right.
are about at 88, 90% of where they were pre-COVID. But, well, that's good news. I noticed in the San Antonio paper this morning, the headline is, they're getting a new carrier. That's the headlines we need. So they're getting a new carrier with direct flights to like
San
Oklahoma and
Antonio's,
San Antonio International Airport.
just what
right?
they need.
What, so while our airport's rebounding, we're still in that pursuit for more flights, more direct flights, more carriers. It's somewhat confidential, so I can't announce too much of this, but we are working with a carrier that does want to make Corpus Christi actually move their headquarters there and begin to have direct flights to places like Midland and Odessa, right, in the west, and then Chicago. So it's the smaller planes. I think it's the 30 some odd seaters, but and then they're in the business of cargo as well. I think, Steve, right? So the mayor met with them. I met with them, and they're seriously moving this forward. So hopefully soon we'll be able to talk more specifics with the council and the community.
You know, Peter, let me ask you a question. On that Amazon deal that they closed
Yes, sir.
on the property of the Baker Hughes,
Yes, sir.
that's gonna be like a distribution type of center?
It'll be like the last
How
mile.
is-
Yeah.
Do you think that will affect our air service to maybe attract other companies to maybe come here now that we're going to be attached like an Amazon distribution center? I mean, I don't know how that works, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. That's why I'm asking the question. To me, I would think that that would affect us maybe trying to attract more business, airfare businesses here.
Yeah.
Because we have a facility like that, you
Right.
know? I don't know.
It
It
could,
could,
but it's
yeah.
not necessarily, I mean,
The-
it's not in the city, but it's still in the region.
It's in the
so-
airport
Right.
area, I mean.
It's in the airport
Yep.
area. The airport does have a cargo, it does have cargo runways and there's some cargo facilities there at the airport, so. Mhm. There's also space to build at the airport. One of the projects is demolishing an older hangar that's highly inefficient the way it was designed. And so we're gonna be looking for companies to build there, so there's a big pad site available.
Good.
Okay, moving on to the final one under infrastructure, streets. You talked about that. Peter gave an extensive update yesterday about the street maintenance program, widening, expansion, reinvestment. Similar to water sewer, it's one of those things that you're playing catch-up.
Yeah,
As
we're
many of
very-
you mentioned.
Streets is talked about every other day
Yeah.
in our world, so we're good there.
As a matter of fact, we're getting a street fixed today, right, Mike? They're starting to work on County Road 52 in the Annabelle, Cal Island area, so that's a good plus.
Yeah.
That's something that has been a priority for many of us since we first came on here, the older members. And we are leaps and bounds ahead today than where we were when we first came on. And so I think that comes from all of us having the shared vision and listening to the community, because a lot of what we heard was fix our streets. And so we're
That's always the number one.
yeah, so, I think as long as we maintain that focus, we'll continue making improvements in that area.
And it's one of those areas that government comes face to face about how quality your services are when they look at the
Yeah.
condition of your roads.
Yeah.
More of a passive way.
It's actually a quality of life.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, the people are very passionate about their streets,
No,
you know?
Well, they use them all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. The second one item, we'll move on from infrastructure to land use. A couple of you brought that up to me about the land use, the comp plan. I didn't put down names of who brought it up, so I rely on the people, if that was your item, to bring it up now.
What was land use? I'm sorry. What is this about?
Zoning, the comp plan, land use, how that's being used, rezonings, just the land use in general. If that was your item, if you can remember.
It was not my item.
No, and I know,
Oh,
that's what I'm asking.
You're
No, no.
looking at me.
No, I'll just look up. If it
Okay.
was your item, better than
Direct eye
looking down.
contact. Don't be afraid of it,
Don't
Mayor.
be afraid. Look him in the eye. That's what I tell my son.
I've got a quick, one thing, we're becoming a sprawling city on there, so as we look at land use, where we're not having to reach out miles and miles from infrastructure, that we look hard at taking advantage of undeveloped areas that already have infrastructure. We know our fee schedule, which staff is working well on that, but the infill type projects, and we've got these areas of town that we've got all this blight in, and we're making some good progress on that, but I'd like to see us continue where these inner city areas that we have a lot of emphasis on trying to get the derelict housing out and get new housing in, but try to take advantage of our current infrastructure rather than putting the strains that we have by reaching out and making sure when we're developing on there that all costs are covered in there. We're subsidizing a lot of the development right now, where if it's disadvantageous to our infill development, but I compliment staff on moving forward, trying to equalize that out.
So is this, council member, is this something you want to add as an official? I mean, I support it. I would just advise we put some bullet points under,
Yeah, sure.
based on what he just said.
Okay. More infill
You know-
development, right, Councilman?
I hate to go back to infrastructure, Peter, but one thing that I noticed that we didn't put on here
Yes, sir.
was the gas department.
There was,
Developers out there throughout the city, I've talked to several of them, and my question to them is, why aren't we offering gas and electricity, let the resident have it, and they say that the city doesn't provide gas up to the new developments. And
Yes.
you and I spoke about it, and you said
Right.
that was not true.
and that's still not true, yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that we
So the
clarify
city-
that,
The
because-
city, right, oh, go ahead, Councilman, sir.
Because I think that should be up to the resident, whether they want a gas use or electrical use, you
Yeah.
know? It shouldn't be just, we're pushing all these developments, all the ones, the new ones I've seen, they're all electrical. Everything is electrical in it. And then you get one or two people saying, well, I want gas, but there's no gas lines here.
Yeah, so in some of the existing subdivisions that were built decades ago, that may be true, but the city, when we do the plating process, the gas department's part of the review, and so they know where subdivisions are being built, and they go in, the city pays for the gas line, so we go in, put the gas line in as the subdivision's being built, then we offer a grant to the developer to take it from the street to the house. We pay for it, so basically the developer can have gas at no cost to them.
So do the developers take advantage of that? I mean,
Well,
because
some-
I have not seen that, that's what
Yes.
I'm asking.
It's up
It's,
to them.
it's at the developer's choice to take it to the house.
Oh,
Yes,
So
the
it's their
developer's choice.
choice.
It's
It's
their
their choice to take it to the house, and some do and some don't, but because of some new guidelines, and we'll have Bill Mahaffey explain it to council, federal guidelines, it's cheaper for them to put electric in because of the ventilation that's required.
They don't always tell you the whole story.
Yeah.
well, that's what I wanted,
Yeah.
that's why I was asking. the
We,
question.
it's at zero cost. We have it to where we're paying for everything, all the way up to the stove or the water heater, so.
Wow.
But the developer or the home buyer chooses not to have it, so we can't
Right. Enforce it.
right,
No,
yeah.
as long as we're doing it
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that Mahaffey's got a good program to include that grant, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Mayor, I got a quick one.
Yes.
We've been brought a lot of things to the council that, planning commission and staff kind of aren't on the same page on. I'm not sure if this falls under land use, but it has to deal with zoning quite often, and, I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, it's probably my fault. But, if there's any way we could get them more on board, or at least discussing a little bit more, and I don't know if that needs to be us talking to the planning commission, I don't know if that needs to be the city staff helping the planning commission more, probably us, but,
The role of the planning commission.
Role of the planning commission?
I feel like, we've been having to make too many decisions.
Agreed.
Oh, I see, right. So they need to
based
do a
on
better job at their
information that
due
they don't
diligence.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
They need to be a little bit more thorough in
Yeah.
terms of what they send down, before
Because
they
their
send it.
recommendations don't follow what the staff is, and we actually have followed what the staff's recommendations, but over there is a little bit more. And they're a good group of people, and they're,
Well, I'm sure they are.
great, community role players.
Yeah,
Good.
Just wanted to throw that
That's a
out
very
there.
good point, though, because
That's a great point,
it
Michael.
is. Thank you.
I've had that discussion with Mr. Raymond, that the Development Services needs to help our planning commission be a little more proactive at working through the complicated zoning cases. The council should never spend 2 hours wrestling with a zoning
Right.
case,
Yeah,
ever.
Exactly.
okay.
I'm glad you went back to that.
Oh, I mean, diversify economy, you know,
Right? Oh, right.
from yesterday.
Mayor, if I could make just one quick point, going back to our water thing, Peter, one of the things I think we really need to start doing and having our experts help us do is this community is now getting one side of the story only with respect to environmental issues surrounding desalination. We need to give the other side of that story. I mean,
Okay.
if you look at social media now, people
Yeah.
who have zero knowledge about desal are regurgitating what they're hearing from this environmental group, which is,
If you look at Rolling Stone magazine,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the Rolling Stone magazine article is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
Total misinformation.
Okay, we have it, we're aware of that, and I think Amber Otting, our public information kind of lead there in the water department, has begun doing some counterpoint material. So it won't be soon. Maybe we can come to council where it'll be live, you know, and we can use that medium as well.
But
But
you know,
we'll tell
Peter,
you.
pardon, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I would say, I think it would be much appreciated if we had a faster reaction to
Yeah.
some of these things. That article came out 2 weeks ago.
At least.
So someone needs to be the face of this desal.
Yeah,
If it's Amber, then she needs to be, you would need to task her to say, all right, stay on top of what's going on. That came out, that circulated from a million different people to all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I know it did to me. Someone needs to be the face of, here are the facts, here's where the city stands, and it needs to be the same face every time.
right. I think the face is right behind us over there, Mike Murphy. That's why I hired him, so we don't have somebody, you know.
Okay, but if Amber does.
Well, Amber's the one
She
that's.
does a great job of doing.
Yeah.
When she does do that piece of it, she does a great job.
She does, right.
And I'm not saying he shouldn't do it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Someone needs to be just on it.
Exactly. That's why I needed the chief operation officer, because you have Kevin, we have Estefan, we have Amber, but nobody, I need a person who's on it, an executive, and that's why Mike Murphy's here.
So he's
So
gonna
he may
in
not
front
be
of
the one that,
cameras.
he may not be the one that's in front of the camera, but he's gonna be he's gonna get the response quicker. We don't have a response to the Rolling Stone magazine, right? They're working on it. But with
Right,
Mike
that's
Murphy,
like
it's
2
gonna be
weeks
every
later.
day, we're gonna be hammering that issue. And anything to do with water, desal, you know, and he'll work with Amber to determine who's in front of the camera or the microphone. But he's gonna help with that. That's the issue with the water department, is I got 5 different division heads that are working as strong leads in their respective areas, but I have no one leader. And so issues like, how do we advance desal every day? How do we counteract this article that came out? How do we negate this Facebook post today? That's not there, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. So with Mike Murphy, it's gonna be there. That's his sole job every day, is every day focus on water, the utility, and we know desal is a huge initiative right now, so focus on that every single day. And get those guys, we have a strong team of male and female executives, but I don't have a leader, and that's been the gap. And so that's what Murphy's gonna do. So your point's well taken, Mayor. We understand that.
Thank you.
Okay?
To real quickly, to go back to something Councilman Lerman was bringing up about the gas department. One of the things, Peter, I feel that we don't do a good job of is marketing the fact that the city will give rebates to residential customers for the gas appliances that they install in their houses. And we need to do a better job of marketing our gas department. For example, if you put out information about, here's the average gas usage for our residential gas customers, and the first 2 MCF of that now is free, essentially, based on a, $18 a month charge, whatever it was. We need, and I think if we do that, we can encourage more people to make gas hookups, which brings more money to the city coffers. And we just need to do a better job of marketing that utility to the public.
Okay, that's a good point. We got it written down.
Okay, move on to the third one, economic development. There was the job creation, the roles of port, and downtown that came up. Yes, Councilman?
I guess I'll just try to make this quick because I've been talking too much already. We need, sometimes Corpus Christi misses the boat on things, and we suffer for it big time. Not diversifying our economy 30 to 40 years ago left us in an area that we could only go up or down really based on one industry, which was the oil and gas or the energy industry. Back to Councilman Pusley's points yesterday and Councilman Martinez's, is that if we can incentivize some of these different industries that we don't have here, that we are desperately going to need, because if we don't, we're going to have another 25-year period where Corpus Christi doesn't grow again. And you asked us yesterday what we want to be known for. Well, I don't want to be known for the person that kept us stagnant. Just like, things have not changed. And things are changing. We have one of the greatest staffs that we've ever had and councils to get some of these things accomplished. But tech is huge. We cannot miss the opportunity to bring these companies here. The mayor has gone out of her way with me to, I guess, initiate some of the conversations with some of these groups. And it is very exciting to know that they want to come to places like Corpus Christi because we offer things that these other cities do not offer. And, well, for example, not 2 hours of traffic just to go to work, hundreds of thousands of dollars extra on their homes, stuff like that. And these guys, most of these tech people they're kind of like me. They grew up on a computer. They're fairly nerdy. They don't care about anything except for a cup of coffee and a good set of headphones, mouse, and keyboard right in front of them, right?
And a good Wi-Fi system.
Oh, a great Wi-Fi system. And that's kind of one of the things, actually, that is one of the things that will always hold us back to prevent us from bringing things like tech conventions to Corpus, is we don't even have the Wi-Fi capabilities to host them here. I can't remember who I was talking to about that. It was one of the council members. It might have been Councilman Lerma. But I think we need to expand our out-of-the-box thinking to bring those groups here. Plus, we have Councilman Smith's been talking about this since the day he got on council. We have a downtown vacancy of 70%,
Yep.
something like that,
Yes,
of
sir.
our offices. This is where these people would go.
Yeah.
But those are initiatives that would be promoted through the EDC, not necessarily through
We could do
us.
the TERS, the EDC.
Yeah,
Well,
it can be, we have several
We-
things in
Well,
play.
we use EDC.
Well, do you want me to say that? I don't know if I'm supposed to say
You
any of that
can,
stuff
sure.
yet. So there's going to be, the mayor has discussed with the EDC a subcommittee and, you know, focusing on these things. There may be more than one subcommittee, but one of them will be focusing on tech. And that way that we could have a say with the EDC or a more consistent discussion with them on focusing on these things. Because, you know, when you hit home runs like Barry Bonds, why do you want to hit a single down the line?
Yeah.
And they are consistently hitting home runs with these 20 to $1 billion companies coming in.
I agree with you, and I support that idea, but I don't know
Well,
where.
Schlitterbahn wasn't necessarily just done through the EDC.
Well,
There's a
and-
lot of different agreements and
There
opportunities
is.
we can utilize.
And if I may interject,
Now
Councilman
it's a bad
Hunter,
example.
this is something very, well, it's been, you know, like a priority for you.
Yeah, cities do this all the time.
Right, right.
Downtown Dallas, downtown Fort
Right.
Worth.
And so I think part of this is about, when he brought this to me and we started talking about, you know, this initiative for him, it ties into what we all want, I think, and I certainly do, and I'm working very hard in this position to have a huge focus on downtown and bringing jobs downtown and filling the, as you have mentioned or talked about for many years, filling those buildings, okay? So, again, in conversation, I thought, you know what? Why don't we focus part of our EDC as a subcommittee to focus on that, a smaller focus. They have a huge focus, and we need that. That continues on. But anyway, this endeavor that Michael has brought to my attention is going to give a focus on the tech part of, why not diversify into the tech part, right, of the world that we're not in. And just because we never have it, we don't have to be Austin to be a part of that. We need to make that. And that's what he has been, you know, what Michael has been always saying is, let's just make it happen here. Well, then let's do it. And we have to try to make it happen. And so that's what he wants to move forward, and I support it wholeheartedly because I think it's something absolutely that can be done during the legislative session. We ended up talking to some people. They were very good conversations.
was
His
very good.
dad supports it, and I'm gonna say that, not because this
That's
has anything to
okay.
do with your dad, but because he's very excited about it as well. And so I think this is your time, our time as a council, to move something like this into our portfolio. And it diversifies, which is, we all agree that must happen.
So this will be a function of a subcommittee from the EDC?
We're having conversations now, yes, but it was my intent in regards to downtown and filling,
Those
filling
slots.
the slots, there you go.
And I agree with it. I was just trying to figure out who on city staff would kind of help push that.
Yeah, I'm working on that now, and so I'm working
Peter
with Dan.
Collins.
Yeah, Peter Collins, but we're
Yeah,
working on
Peter.
that now with the EDC, because I told them as mayor, I would like to see an arm, if you will, of what they do, help us accomplish not only this, but the jobs, what they do, but on a smaller scale.
Michael, but didn't all that expansion come from higher ed, Austin, obviously through the University of Texas, Silicon Valley, because of all the education?
That definitely was impactful.
So I get where you're going. I just think we have to look at it from a standpoint of where the success has been.
Sure.
Because the more brain power you recruit, and like you had said, the expansion of higher ed, what have you, that when you have that focus, that makes it easy because those companies are trying to recruit people from there.
And
They
and
are.
along
And-
with his initiative is work that downtown management is
That's down
doing.
there.
exactly
Downtown's
to your
doing.
point
And
regarding
I
higher
actually
ed.
do agree with you 100%, but the person who created that initiative, one of the like 10 people in the room was Peter Collins for Austin, Texas. He was in charge of that committee, and we're lucky to have him here.
That's right, we are.
And lucky Peter Zanoni has great taste in employment.
Great taste.
Well, I guess that's the thing, I just want to make sure that that component is not
And
forgotten.
we have
It's there.
98.9% of our graduates leaving this city who already have that degree.
It's there.
And that's a big issue. That's something that the council definitely needs to support, and I think they do. I, for one, definitely do for the downtown area. I've been pushing that since I got on, that we need tech jobs, manufacturing jobs to stay in the downtown area. That's where we have the empty space. You
Yeah,
know,
well-
it'd be a
And
good
y'all know
hand in
that.
hand.
Yeah. I appreciate the support and the feedback, but it's definitely something I'll be passionate about until I'm kicked off the council, so.
So how should we articulate that on your?
I wrote down that the role of the EDC, that you're, have a focus of a subcommittee on tech jobs.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't
It's
see that.
okay. And then bringing jobs downtown to fill a lot of vacancies.
Right. Yes,
You could be the Silicon Coast.
there you go.
Silicon Coast, the affordable coast.
Bless you, you sneezed.
They
Okay.
all keep letting
Are we
California
pushing
do
to be
it.
the capital? Peter,
South Dakota calls itself the Silicon Prairie. So
Corpus Christi to be the capital of the Gulf Coast?
Yeah,
That's what we're pushing, right?
that's what,
I'm-
exactly,
it's
Councilman,
10:10.
yes, sir.
I'm a little concerned with the time, because these are very important, all of these that we still need to get to.
Okay, anything else on economic development? That's right. And if you need to take a break, go ahead and take one, because I don't intend to, so we can kind of stay on schedule, if that's okay with people. Try to get you out of here, so the mayor takes us to lunch today after happy hour yesterday.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
anyone
what
need a
happened to
break?
happy hour? I don't know.
No.
I didn't get to go to
We'll just
happy
keep,
hour. You didn't
keep
invite
moving
me.
forward. If you need to take a break, go ahead and do so.
I wasn't invited.
We were all there.
I'm going to move on. Public safety, I mean, Peter talked about that. That's a major initiative, obviously. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about with that.
Yes, so the plan, how are we bridging the gap? Because that is of utmost priority. How we're gonna bridge that gap in terms of the 555 versus doing 10.
Right, so the Chief Markle recommended my first year here to add 25 police officer positions, 5 for 5 years in a row. We talked to him and the mayor about getting 10 this year. So in this budget, we have 5 that are training right now. In the next budget, the 2022 for October 1, the plan that council has endorsed is another 5. So what Chief Markle talked about is we can get the 5 that would be approved for October 1 into the academy now. So the July academy will have 10 new officers, even though only 5 were approved in the budget. We're gonna, with council's okay, we're gonna go ahead and train 10 because we're planning on 5 more on October 1.
Right.
So that's something that's in the works.
Okay,
And
and I
then-
just wanted everyone to know that, because that is extremely important, and there's no way we are ever going to catch up, if you will. I mean, at least bridge some of that gap if we
Yeah.
if we don't fast forward.
Right.
The 5 coming up, and that was literally the first meeting and conversation I had as mayor,
It
was
was.
that one with
Right.
Peter and Markle, because it's just extremely important. We have to better what our police department force, because everything else we're talking about requires that our force grows with our city and all of these endeavors that we're talking about, moving forward.
Right.
Peter, do the cadets, are they on salary while they're in the
Yes, sir.
academy?
Yes, sir, they are. It's not as much as a police officer, but it's, they get paid from day one.
How's the mechanics of that gonna work if we have 5 budgeted for this year and we're gonna include another 5, where is their salary gonna come from?
Right, so it's only, it's
If we decide
mid-July.
through for the next budget?
Yeah, so the salary needs for this fiscal year would be August, September, 2 months, a little of July.
Okay.
And we'll get it out of the police
So
department's
it's not like
budget.
a full year's?
Yeah, it's just for the
salary, okay.
2.5 months, so
It's in
that'll come out of the,
Got it.
It'll come from the police department savings, if you will, that they have. Yes, sir.
From not having.
So,
From not having a chief, yeah, there's one way. but,
so Peter, let me ask this question. And maybe you can answer it also, Mayor. You know, I know that we're looking at 5 for the next 5 years, okay?
Right.
And it's a budget. My question to everyone, since I'm not knowledgeable of it, what does it cost for us to put one cadet through this from beginning to end? And is that the reason we can't put 10, 15, 20 people a year through the process? I mean, is it because of the cost factor? What is it,
Yeah.
what does it cost us to put one cadet through the entire thing and finish it from beginning to end?
Right.
You know, I don't know that number.
It's 130,000,
It's
130,000?
126, I think.
Yeah, the bigger cost, Councilman, is after they're out of the cadets, training. So the issue is financing, is money, with a lot of what we
Always about
decide.
money, right?
It's always about money, so we can add more police officers if that's the desire of the council. What we have to do is see what we don't do. So do we do less streets? Do we do
Right.
less library? Do we do less animal care?
Right.
Because we only have so much money, right? And our two revenue sources,
Right.
unlike other cities that have more in Texas, like in Austin or San Antonio, that have revenues coming from their electric utility, we don't have that. So it's really just a finance question. That's why the Chief Markle's 5x5 plan addressed the issue of adding more offices where the city hadn't done it for many years, maybe decades. But it did it kind of in a way that we could afford to do it. And, but we can revisit that, especially with the new chief. Is the 5x5 plan too small? Do we need more?
Well, yeah,
Well,
and-
and that's my question, that's what I'm trying to get to. I mean, because the city's growing.
Yeah.
And I know that we're 120-something police officers for a city this size behind or something. That's the number they keep telling me.
No.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
my concern is, if the city keeps growing and we're not growing the police force at least at the same type of
well,
rate,
what's
we're gonna
happened
get
though,
further behind.
That's why we're adding more now.
what happened though, Councilman, is years ago, and Mark back there will tell you, some brilliant person decided to say, we're cutting. How many, Mark? 50 police officers from the budget, 50. Then more brilliant people decided not to replenish or replace those. So here we are today, we're down 116 officers.
I wasn't sure what the number, I knew it was 100
Yeah,
and something.
but the problem is now our problem.
Yeah.
And as Peter just explained, we can't solve it, we can't just say, well, let's just hire 50 more for the next, let's just figure it out in increments of 50. We can't afford to do it. So now we have to do it slowly, responsibly, but we have to do it. So is 5 enough for me? No. Is 10? No. But it is something that we can make work in the budget. It's all about the dollars. Because as Councilman Molina said about where is this coming from? If we can add 5, how can we just add 10? Well, because part of that budget's coming from the end of one budget and then the start of a new one. That's why it works. So we're basically fast forwarding the 5 plan, which I would not have supported because it doesn't help the police officers grow, but it's better than nothing. I will never not support
Well, I
adding a
mean,
police officer.
my
So-
biggest concern is the safety issue, though.
No, I understand,
I
but
mean,
the thing
because we
is-
talk about safety, for example, we talk about safety in development, we talk about safety of having sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Right.
Okay, this is a bigger safety issue right here
But you
than
need
anything else.
millions and millions of dollars
And
to
I
do
get that.
this.
So my question is, how do we get there?
That's what we're doing today.
We need to make sure
We're
we
going-
get there. We don't just,
Instead of-
stay static where we're at.
No, Councilman, so 4 years ago, this was a topic of
What did
the
you, I don't know,
council.
what did you?
And to not continue, I mean, I don't want to.
Well, I mean, we
don't
can go in
mean
more,
to-
we can go in
I
more
don't mean to
detail on
prolong-
another time, to
No,
be
no,
honest with
no,
you.
but
I
it's-
just
but
had a
it's very
concern and
important.
question on
It is
this.
not stagnant, and the police department will tell you. We, back in 16, brought this forth like it had never been brought before, ever. The police department never even had a chance to stand here before us and say, here is what's going on with our police department. We did a workshop. I mean, that sounds, it's so sad, but never had they done that. When they did that, they were able to say, here are the issues. We are 126 police officers short. the council was like, what? We're what, 126? Okay, so now we've got, it's kind of like streets. We've got the issue of streets that has come forth from the last 30 years. We can't fix all the streets in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. But we can do the things that we are doing, which begins with leadership, and make things happen faster, make work happen smarter, and so on. Same thing with the police force. It will be my number one priority, along with, I know this council, just like streets, but we have to do it responsibly. So we are not stagnant. We started with the 555 plan, which everyone supported, but now guess what? We're making it 10. Because again, that was my first meeting here to say, this 555 plan will take all day, but it's really not gonna work. We've got to increase it, and we worked it out to where we can take from 2 different budgets to make that happen now.
No, I understand. I
And
was just,
hopefully, moving forward, we could say next time it's gonna be 15.
yeah.
And we keep moving that way, but we work closely with, well, Mark will, but now whomever it'll be, to make sure we continue to bridge that.
There's something on the budget.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
And Mark and I were talking yesterday at lunch break, just to be clear, hiring in law enforcement is a crisis. It's chronic
Oh, absolutely.
across the country, right? We were talking about that, getting people to pass the hiring qualifications, getting people, so what law enforcement's gonna have to do, we talked about this a little bit briefly, I work with a lot of chiefs, they're gonna have to build their own minor league system.
And it
Just
is,
like
by
they're
the way,
sponsoring people cadets, you're gonna see more and more of that. They're gonna be working with community colleges, high schools, they're gonna have to go out and secure their own minor leagues, because it's a challenge in law enforcement, and it's not just about money.
Yeah, but the
About a lot
cost
of
is
other-
130,000 per police officer. That's the cost,
And-
for each one.
And those of you that
That's
may
just
be
going through the training
The whole
process.
new to council, right,
to get
remember,
hired at the end.
when an officer comes out of the academy, they don't hit the street for a long time, because they gotta go through a field training program. So
Right.
as soon as they're done, it's not like they're a boot on the ground,
And
right?
another problem is we have one of the best training programs in the entire country, so everyone tries to steal all of our,
Well, and then the other thing is, Don talked about, you're also losing people because people age out, so you're having to replace vacancies as well as add to, so it's
Well, I
just,
think what's gonna help also is getting our new academy put up. Once we get the
Oh,
new academy,
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
that's gonna address a lot of the issues that we have.
Yeah.
To where we can get better quality, better.
Yeah, we're
better
real lucky.
quantity.
Yeah, we're lucky that the cadets even stay. I mean, they use porta potties right now for restrooms.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for the information.
Yeah.
let's move on to something easy like affordable housing and
No,
homelessness.
yeah, right.
Oh, Lord.
Affordable housing is the most dominant topic discussed by councils no matter where I go. Large or small, urban and rural, affordable housing.
How did we skip the role of the port? I don't remember us.
I brought it up, nobody talked about it, so if you want to
Okay.
bring it back, and
What's that?
the role of the port about
Oh.
economic
The
development.
role of the port, you did bring it up?
Oh,
Well, I mean,
no.
I listed it, nobody mentioned it. so-
Oh, well, that might have been when I was still, I went out there.
That's all right. I'm fine.
Okay.
Well, no, it's there.
my-
Let's
my-
talk.
Well, you
we
know,
have a lot of
Oh, no.
council
I have a
members that wanna
question.
talk about it.
And maybe the question is for you,
Me?
Patrick,
Okay,
since you've been all over the country,
all over the place.
okay, you know, doing these courses and all that. I'm sure you've dealt with other cities that have ports. You know, how does the port play in the growth of a city? How does it work hand in hand? What can we do to get them involved with the city? You know, because I'll be quite honest with you right now, we don't have a good relationship at our port right now. I'm just gonna flat out say it, we don't. And it's not through anyone's fault, I'm not gonna point fingers to anybody. But we're not able to really work hand in hand and communicate the way I feel that we should. Because I think the port should play a big part in part of the growth of the city. It's right down the center of the city. It's right down the center of my district, you know, and I have concerns with it.
I-
Can you give advice on something?
Well, it's very contextual based on the history of the relationship and their legal obligations, what they're supposed to be doing as an organization. A lot of it has to do with the people in those key positions, like your counterparts, as well as staff's counterparts. I think it's also important, based on what I've heard from some of you, is it sounds like you're trying to reset the relationship. The question is, what's the port's version of how they expect you to reset it? So I've said this a few times, the more unified you are about a common voice, whether it's with the 3 counties, whether it's with the port, the schools, adjacent cities, if you're stepping up your game, and I'm just saying this in general, you're stepping up your game in any of those dimensions, it's not always well received because all of a sudden other people got used to doing things and telling you what they think you should be doing. If you're going to start now being an advocate about what you want to be doing and encouraging them about what they could be doing for you, welcome to the world of politics, right? So it's not always based on the merits or the land or the investment. Some of it's based on your relationships with those counterparts and their history and how they've designed that relationship. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody in this room. The challenge is as you reset that, then sometimes you have to, you know, it's not a linear path.
But I think that's with all,
Absolutely.
everything, right? It's not,
Yeah.
not necessarily just the port. I mean,
Right, whether it's the counties, the port, the school district, large entities, the private sector, it's how you envision that role and how do you create that shared understanding. You talked about this a little bit earlier, and I just wanted to go, so I'm glad you brought that. You talked about the Planning Commission. Development Services can advise the Planning Commission all they want. Planning Commission members need to hear it from you. Because it's one thing for them to tell the Planning Commission. You appoint the Planning Commission members. But it closes the loop when council talks to the Planning Commission and say, you know, make sure you're not bringing stuff to us that you need to be resolving.
We're not allowed to do that.
Well, but just in circuitous ways, right? So it's not telling them what they should do. It's to have them understand that what you're dealing with are things. Because if the Development Services is trying to do that, it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's just awkward for them to try to do that. I'm not saying you're going to go and say, vote this way or vote that way. I'm not suggesting that at all.
Well-
But it's awkward.
Well, one time, I know Rebecca, I think before COVID, they had talked about having an orientation for board members. And, you know, my personal opinion is the challenge with the port and even the planning commission is they're too easily influenced from outside sources and they don't understand what their true role is. And that's the challenge. They have to understand that they're there to legislate, and they allow outside influence to make their decision, and then all of a sudden it becomes, because it's difficult to make tough decisions. We have to face it on a regular basis. And when that outside influence comes in, then all of a sudden now, they're forgetting what they're supposed to do.
Well,
For our boards and commissions, so there is one that's being provided to them online, but in addition, there's a component where the departments also provide an orientation as well. There's general rules that the board and commissioners have to abide by, you know, attendance, things like that, but really specific stuff, that's handled at the department level. But for like the board and places like that, yeah, that's where we could try to develop some kind of training, I guess, specific to those larger ones that are more, I guess, have more policy or more,
Well-
more weight, I guess. Something like that, but we do have an orientation put in place on broad boards, boards and commissions.
Yeah. Absolutely. But you could tell them that. I've told them that.
Miles, would you like to say?
That orientation was for the city boards, it wasn't for the port.
Right,
Because the port is a
Independent body.
state entity that we appoint to.
right.
Other questions about the port? Okay. So I'm going to go back to the subject of housing, homelessness. Why don't we take a 5-minute biology break because the energy in the room has been sucked out. So let's take 10 minutes for fluid management. Okay. There you go.
Yes.
We're going to start without you, Mayor, okay? So we're not running on mayor time.
Oh, that's funny. I used to say that. Is it Paulette time or is it Greenwich Village time?
Affordable housing and homelessness, affordable housing.
We donate it.
Cities are trying to figure out what their role is when it comes to housing. Is it about being an investor and add incentives? Is it about zoning? Vertical growth is definitely on the uprise. Higher density is on the uprise.
Amen.
Infill is on the uprise. Price of light lumber is definitely on the uprise. It's astounding. People's preferences and how they live and where they live is changing. Thoughts about housing? Affordable housing?
Yeah, I think we had some nice debate on Tuesday with regard to that, and
Okay.
I think I don't know why I'm throwing it out, but having children that are in between, well, my youngest is 28, my oldest is 36, and when they look at, they think it's ridiculous for anybody to have a yard, you know, because of the fact that, of course, they're all granola and tree huggers, but they feel like what a yard does to the environment, the waste of gasoline, waste of water, and so not a good utilization of real estate. You know, I think that's one thing that we have to learn to embrace or understand what other communities, you know, a high-end community being the Mueller development in Austin, you know, it's a high-end area and there's literally no yard, you know, and so, and then they have that area where it's more for, it's more for a community to go and play rather than in our front yard. And I just think those are some things that we have to embrace, and good utilization of the real estate.
I think that affordable housing right now doesn't even really exist, especially with new homes, you know, with what the market is, what building costs are. I mean, what Roland's talking about, what we talked about Tuesday, they were calling it affordable housing and they're $250,000, $275,000 houses. You know, that's not affordable housing.
Not for this demographic, the demographic of our community.
Well, I think that there's there's some kind of scale or standard that it's supposed to be like. I mean, what is it, like?
Yeah, I think is it 30% of, what was the,
30%.
no more than a family's income, no more than 30% of a family's income should go towards housing. So a price point like that, it's like 60, 70%, probably 80%.
Yeah, the guy with Thunderbird said they can't build them for 150,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so that we all, you know that there's, for the first time, some national home builders in Corpus Christi now. And another one that's coming here is Lennar. Is it Lennar? Yeah, Lennar. And they're in San Antonio. They do an affordable housing product, and with subsidy from the city in the form of a TERS. So we're going to develop some policy proposals for the council to look at. They're willing to. Their price point was what? 200,000, 170. Below 150 is some of their homes. In San Antonio and elsewhere in the country, they've done things to include eliminating the garages, you know, to make them affordable.
Even now, I mean, today,
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that 6 months ago,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
today, different story.
Yeah, so that's so 150,000, 170, the starter homes for working families, but it would be with a subsidy from the city, so.
So that's
put
going to
that
come
on our
back.
radar.
But is there any way, if we're providing a subsidy from the city, is there any way that we can urge them to use local contractors?
Yeah, I think so.
They've already committed to that. That was one of the questions that we had for them, is who are they going to employ for all of these?
Well, they're committing to that, but that's not the case.
We can put it in the contract, you know, Councilman, in the TERS, and there would have to be a proving up of it,
Yeah,
verification.
follow through with using the local.
Yeah.
You don't get your benefit.
I know one of the bigger contractors that has moved into town, touted that they were gonna use local contractors and,
Mr. York?
yeah, they're not,
Really?
no, they're
I didn't know
We're
that.
putting people out of business.
Peter, is that coming
And I'm
back
not
to council for their
speaking for
consideration?
myself. I don't
Yeah,
do
well,
any-
we're working with Lennar, they're looking for property and, yeah.
So this
Yeah,
is
we
gonna come
told
back
them,
to
yeah.
you at some point after the discussions with Lennar reach the next stage, then you'll have some options to consider for the city's role in trying to help subsidize the construction of public housing, or
On
affordable
the
housing.
subsidizing part of it, though, we would just reorganize our current subsidy process, or whatever it's called.
Well,
Or would,
the subsidy would be, in this case, in the form of a TERS, so we would give back property, we would use property tax revenue.
but we, so if we did do that, what do we have currently in place where we give them like $20,000 to help build a affordable house?
We do have, right, with our federal money, with the Community Development Block Grant, there's dollars that are
Would
used.
we take that away
Um,
and put it into the new TERS program?
We could layer it, it could be a layer.
It would be a
Yeah,
layer.
we could layer you can layer multiple incentives for housing development. Mhm.
So that's gonna be coming your way after the discussions reach a certain point with Lennar, and you'll have some options.
And homelessness, anything? Peter?
So, yeah, so the homelessness, we have several $1 million that the council approved now in the form of a budget for some type of a shelter for homeless individuals. And we spoke of that yesterday, so we need some type of a shelter that doesn't have a lot of restrictions. You know, right now, there's the homeless shelters that we do have. We have over 30 agencies. Many have a shelter, but there's a lot of qualifications. You have to be female, you can't have kids, you can't have pets, you can't be this age, you can't be on drugs and alcohol. And so there's a group that's excluded, right, from their services. So we want a shelter that anybody can come in. You don't need a bunch of requirements need to be met. It would have to be safe. So we're looking to partner with an entity. There's several that we're talking to include the Catholic Charities, Mission 911, Tony Reyes, and the Salvation Army. Those are three that are willing to partner with the city. And so that's another one where we just need to keep advancing it forward. It is an issue out there, and there is a tent city, if you're not familiar with it, down there by Broadway, right, Broadway treatment plant, right over the bluff by the cemetery, so. And there's homeless, throughout the city, so. But that shelter, we think, will be helpful. We do have some partners also that are willing to work with us on mental health. And we did have the county with us at one point, and I think they're still kind of there, willing to participate financially and with resources.
I know, Peter, you're talking about a shelter. Are we talking about a shelter, or are we talking about some shelters? Because we do have homeless throughout the entire city. I mean, are we addressing that, is it only gonna be one shelter in the entire city?
Well, right
To where
now-
all the homeless come to that one shelter? Because we have them scattered all over, so are we looking at a couple of shelters out there? Or we're gonna look at one location that they all just head to that one location? and
Yeah,
that's it?
Councilman Lerma, again, it boils down to money and financial resources.
Everything boils down to money.
These are so the goal is to start with one. That $2 million will take care of one. I know, but we know.
I'm not gonna ask where, though.
Where?
I'm not gonna ask.
Okay.
I don't wanna know.
Okay, don't.
I
Did you
don't
want it
wanna
up in
know.
your district?
I don't wanna know.
Yeah,
It's
I already
in
have a tent city.
right.
But, if I may, Peter, and I know you all know this, it is such a complicated issue. If we could put 4 shelters, Billy, we would. You know how much one would run, just to cost?
No, I understand,
And then there's a
ma'am.
million things underneath that as to, well, how do you make it work? And so I can tell you the conversations that we have had and we're having with certain entities that we are praying are going to continue to join hands with us. These conversations are, I was just telling John, I hate saying, yes, we're discussing it, because everybody's so tired of discussing. Let's move. And that's what we want to do, and we are. but it is a very, it's like.
It's a complex, I
Well, it's a
understand.
complex thing because it deals with money and who's gonna do what and that kind of thing. But I will say this, it's moving forward. That conversation is moving forward towards a project. We don't know. I can't say it's gonna be a shelter that's gonna be, 8 to 5 overnight, for how many people. None of that is known.
The details aren't there yet.
But what is known, and I can promise you right here, right now, something will be moving forward in this, in your term, in this, my goodness, I would even say year, because it has to. We have to do something. Things are getting out of hand. So.
I
it-
agree, ma'am. There's no
Right, but I
question about
I
it.
just want you to know that there has never been the conversations that are happening right now with entities that can actually bring something to the table and actually do something to help us move something forward. And so then, of course, this comes to us as a body to say what moves forward and how. So please know that. And hopefully here we'll have more information well, not hopefully, we will have more information on what this could
Yeah,
look like
because I mean, it's just tough to answer the questions
Absolutely.
when you're getting bombarded through
Yeah.
emails and phone calls. What are
Welcome.
you doing
Welcome to
about,
city council.
homeless,
Welcome to
homeless?
city council.
And I said, we're working on it. I just say,
Welcome.
call the mayor's office. That's the easiest. That's what I've definitely learned in the last month or so. Just call the
Oh,
mayor's office.
really?
She's working on it.
And who did you learn that from?
From the other council members,
Oh, okay. Well, and you know what? You're welcome to
but
do
it's,
that.
I mean,
Sincerely.
it's tough to
No.
answer, to be honest with you. It really
No,
is.
well, I mean, and as council members, you have to say, well, you have to say something. If you don't know, I'm not gonna tell you not to refer them to me, because I'm gonna tell them what I'm telling you. So you can be my advocate through that and say, well, this is what's happening. We're joining with other entities. It's a very complex problem. People love to say, fix it. How would you like to fix it? Because I'd like to take more of your tax dollars to do it, but guess what? Not gonna happen, right?
I've actually
So-
put it back on their shoulders, ma'am. Can you give me,
And I
how
can't,
would you
I'm
fix
not
it?
gonna do that to Peter,
They don't know how
because
to
we
say
have to
that.
work this out where it makes sense. And where it makes sense is joining hands with other entities.
Correct.
But then you got other entities going, well, wait a minute, we got this money here. So it's very difficult, but we are moving forward. We are moving forward.
Okay, moving forward.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Moving
Number
forward.
6. Number 6, a few of you brought up the city's approach to customer service. I think it had to do with the planning, development, utility billing process. Thoughts about that? That was that was an item that you brought up.
Yeah, can I just add, well, the thinking, Patrick, that the customer care in our utility, that monthly bill that goes out is more than just for water, but that's one of Mike Murphy's challenges I'm giving him. We really need to revamp how we approach the customer and have better customer care. And 2 years ago, the customer service reps that you would call if you had an issue with your bill, that unit of about 20 people reported to the finance director, who didn't know anything about the water system, right? So we've made that change, but that's just a small step. So one of Murphy's big assignments is to really revamp the customer care and customer approach when it comes to that monthly water, wastewater, utility bill that goes out. And we also talked about the 311 yesterday. So right now, today, it's not clear who to call, but we're also revamping those call takers so they have a different approach. We hired a new manager that's run 2 to 3 call centers in her career, so she knows. Yeah, and we have software to track, and the app will be upgraded as well.
And did we move them, Peter?
Physically?
Uh-huh.
Yes, yeah.
We already did?
Yeah, we moved it to, I think it's Riverview, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's we got a real good lease rate for 2 years, and
But
then.
they already moved?
They already moved, yeah. And then the Lamar building that's being rehabbed for us, they'll have their own big wing up
Oh,
there.
they'll be there.
Yeah,
Great,
yeah.
okay.
I think some things also are like, I know Parks is pretty down, I think Parks is an approach to customer service. Rather than being a maintenance group, that, I've used the term, a Walt Disney experience. And, you know, the Visit Corpus Christi or CVB has done a real good job of putting, you know, selling the story and putting pictures there. But I think whoever our Parks Director is, I think the interim is doing a great job in the sense that she's very attentive. She recognizes that all the people that utilize the park are our customers. But if we look to other communities, like, of course, I know the income structure is different, but like Clearwater, Florida, what is it? They're actually a small community. Tampa, they're not too far from our size. Those are communities that are similar. We at least just see what they're doing, or these other small beachfront communities. That how can we capitalize on that? Because what happens is that we have the maintenance and the bureaucracy goes in, and we lose the idea, the standpoint that we're just managing this. We're not understanding that we have an amenity that we're trying to sell. And I think that so we have to look at it from a customer service standpoint. How can we provide a resource that serves our customer?
Yeah.
That also, I think, utilizing the resource. I think one of the best people I've met at the city that looks at everything from a customer service standpoint is the Public Works Director.
Richard.
I mean, Richard does a great job. In fact, I was joking around about presenting to the council that you should have him work with the rest of your team, because he just did such a great job making presentations and, you know, answering questions and having confidence. But from the standpoint, he has that same ability with regard to dealing with unruly and upset residents and making them feel comfortable.
And council.
Yeah, and council, well, that's what I was talking about.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Richard Martinez.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. You know, so anyway, I think that's the thing. We have to look at every concern that a resident calls with is a chance to enhance our customer service rather than being frustrated.
Okay, other thoughts about that? Okay. We'll move on to animal care services.
ACS. I think we can agree that, yeah, animal care services was kind of, it hasn't received a level of exposure and funding that it really should in the 8th largest city in Texas. So we do have a new manager or leader or assistant director there, Joel, that's doing a great job. We recruited them from out of the city. And for the first time in this budget, we had the first live release coordinator that Councilman Molina and the mayor advocated for.
In this budget.
I think it was in this budget, right? The live,
No, it
was it
last-
2 budgets ago? Oh,
It
2
was
budgets
Sel-
ago.
It was Selman.
Okay,
that I-
okay, live release coordinator. So, I'm not sure if the city has an adopted plan on what we want our live release rate to be, Michael, do you know, or Neiman?
Live release?
90%? So we want to be that's a city council approved policy, or that's the staff's
It's a
policy?
staff.
So even that, the council should have a policy statement saying, hey, we want our live release rate to be at this %, and then you work to get to there.
What,
But just some background context. The facility, I need to tour it. We're going to look at, to see if there's any needed improvements there. We're going to look at all the staff's salary levels. Our Human Resources Department does that in big groups across the organization. In fact, we just made adjustments to salary for the municipal jail employees, as well as the 911 call takers, because it was hard to keep positions filled. So they do studies, benchmark us against other entities that do similar work. So we're going to do that for all of the animal care employees, kennel attendants, customer service reps, the ones that go out into the field, the dispatch folks. So that's something that we'll ask Human Resources to start soon.
well, and if I may, Peter, you know, animal care services, and this is a conversation actually, well, anyway, conversations I've had with Peter and Pryor, is, you know, a lot of times we see it as, well, it's kind of at the bottom of the barrel. And we really, which is, I've had this conversation with Peter. Yesterday, I asked him about those salaries and said, part of the problem, to your point, Roland, indirectly, I said to Peter, we have to look holistically at what we're paying a kennel tech, a customer service person up front because it lacks the most calls I get is about no one answers the phone, all these very basic customer service issues, right? And that just trickles down. And I know I relate so much because you're looking at it in terms of your business, right? And that's how I see it, even though I don't have mine anymore. But everything was about that first call that comes in. If you can't even get that call returned or addressed, it's really bad. And then the perception of our animal control is terrible in the public. And so yesterday, I had a conversation with Peter about the pay. Where are we? As we know that could happen, right? You're gonna get what you paid for. So hence, we're gonna be doing an analysis of where we are and where we should be. Because then this problem goes into more, you've got districts that deal with stray animals and just big issues, way more than others. I think the island and Flower Bluff has them, but nowhere near the way you guys have them, 1 and 2. And so it becomes a huge problem, and you hear so much about it, but it just seems to be put on the back burner all the time. And my strong suggestion before we start on the budget was we need to make an investment into our animal care services. We've never truly done it. That live release coordinator, that was, this is also unofficial, that's the other thing. Our animal advisory board, we need to hear from them. We hear from ISAC, and I always think of ISAC because they are the strongest voice, and they are a recommending city body. The Animal Advisory Board is the exact same thing. And when has this council, or prior, when, Ben, have we ever heard a recommendation from our Animal Advisory Committee? Never.
Yep.
Why? I don't know. But I want to see recommendations from them. They're volunteers that take their time to go sit once a month and talk about how do we better, how do we better our services? How do we, cut back on the stray animals, doing this, that, and the other. Those ordinances that you saw are years of work from that Animal Advisory Board. That's who that came from. Now, Joel brought them forth, Joel had input, but those ladies on that advisory board is who made that happen. That's it. And the direction of leadership, which I'm a big Joel fan, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Joel got here a year ago. And so those ladies have been literally working on that, and Ben and I know, because we were a part of trying to bring that forth, and it never came forth. So thank you, Joel. But those ladies are critical to our animal control service improving. And so anyway, my strong recommendation is for this council to finally make an investment into our services at animal care so that we, especially districts 1 and 2, can see a little bit of rest in terms of all the issues y'all deal with. Because it's bad, you guys.
Okay.
And I know you've heard me before, Peter.
No, that's good, but it's good for the whole council to hear the plan there for animal care. I think those are the issues, so we'll get that salary study going, and we're going to revisit that the live release policy goal. I know in San Antonio, that was a real big issue. Animal care is a lot worse than here in terms of the stray
And
population.
Michael has animal care.
It was under Michael, but it's under Neiman now. Neiman.
No, but I mean, you have so much experience, right?
Yeah, he
From
worked
San
there for,
Antonio.
yeah.
Yeah, from San Antonio.
Yeah, so
Well, he was over it, or
he was, what were you, assistant director?
assistant director, okay,
Yeah,
which is a big asset to us.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, moving on, amenities at city parks, which Peter gave an update yesterday about several of those. The whole list of that. He emphasized trying to stabilize and modernize what's offered at the park. Some of it's fairly basic. Trying to bring the parks up to a certain standard, and then there were some enhancements at parks. They had a long list of that. Are there other items that you wanted to talk about that he didn't mention yesterday?
Just a question. Peter, when we are replacing equipment at our playgrounds, I know that we've done a good job of also including shade over those new playgrounds. And I hope that that's something that we continue to do, like as we replace these playgrounds, include shade as part of that
Yeah.
package.
Yeah, I think that's a standard, the shade, Neiman, and then also the fall zone. And take it a little bit further, things like the splash pads, instead of just leaving them in a muddy area, we're putting in the faux grass or whatever, right? So the turf, yeah, plastic turf, so it really enhances the experience, keeps it clean. So it's all aspects, it's not just put in the,
Okay.
right, yeah, shade, the fall zone, and then even areas around the fall zone to help
Yeah.
the experience.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Anything else about park?
On parks, one thing I've advocated for a lot is our swimming pools and our Learn to Swim programs. We have neglected our swimming pools for a long, long time in every district. And because we are a coastal community, we've had some high-profile drownings. In District 5, we had Chris Duckworth, who drowned in the lake in Lago Vista. He was a King High School student. His mother committed suicide a few years later. Then we had Jasani Smith, who died out near Bob Hall Pier. But we are sorely lacking in Learn to Swim programs at all our swimming pools. And we have not really, outside of Collier Pool, we have not really done anything with any of our pools. I mean, I encourage every one of you to visit our swimming pools. The Nauditorium isn't even our swimming pool. It's really a joint venture with CCISD, and they maintain it mostly. We operate it in the summer and in the evenings. So I think, and I asked Neiman and the Parks Director to try and put at least one swimming pool to be revamped within our bonding projects in order to get those things up to at least, I mean, we don't even charge people right now, and I'm glad we don't, because I'd be embarrassed to charge people to go into those pools. They're really in bad shape. And so we need to update those, make them aquatic centers, have Learn to Swim programs at every single pool. And that's all it goes to quality of life, and providing that kind of service and that falls right under parks. So I encourage us, my swimming is important to me because, I have every one of my sons. I have a college swimmer that is an NCAA athlete that swims. But we engage in these things. We're helping the Jasani Smith Foundation with the swim raiser, the Collins Hope, which is actually a child that drowned in a swimming pool in Austin, but his family was from Corpus Christi. It's a Collins Hope, and his parents went to Carroll High School with my wife and even John Martinez. So it's important that we do these things in order not only for the health and safety, but also for quality of life for our citizens. So it's I think it's very important that we take care of our swimming pools and even and the Learn to Swim programs and things around swimming, because we are a coastal community and we're surrounded by water. Thank you.
And adding on to what Gil is saying, Choloso Midway's program, Mike, you can, if I say something out of line on this one, our school district out there starts busing children from 3rd grade through 5th to our swimming center and teaches swimming for them to learn how to swim. We've been doing that for years. And I think there's several school districts that have pools that we need to check with them to see if they can actually put that kind of program in effect to where they can teach their students in their schools to swim. That would also help us that we're in the coastal area here. I don't know about CCISD because they have that one big swimming center. I don't know how they can do that because that's a pretty large district. But these smaller districts, they actually have some of these programs, and maybe we can partner with them, Peter, check with them and see if they do have these kind of programs in. If not, maybe we can, ask them to see if they can put them in. I mean, it's tough on the budget sometimes, but you know what? You can't put a price on a child from drowning when you look at it, you know, and that's how we looked at it. It does cost money to bus these kids, and this is a daily busing that we take them to the pools to teach them how to swim.
How many city pools do we have now? Does anybody know?
I think it's, is it 5, Neiman? What's that? Yeah, 5, the 6th one is decommissioned
The
over
city
here.
just sold one to the county or gave it to
Yeah, that was,
the Parker Pool.
yeah,
Count the natatorium, Neiman, we have one.
yeah, we did, Councilman, that was a,
Pardon?
we did. I wish we hadn't, but they did that a couple of years ago.
Was it a financial reason for doing that, or?
I think it was, yeah, I think it was maintaining
let-
of it and all of that.
Let me give you
keeping
some
it up.
history. Let me give you some history. The pool was shut down because it had a major crack in the foundation of the pool. And so they just shut it down. A private, a nonprofit organization called Park Pool Patriots did the repairs and tried to get it up and running on kind of a nonprofit, leasing it from the city to do it. They just couldn't maintain it. They asked Commissioner Chesney to step in, and so the county made a deal with the city to lease the pool, and then the county took over the operations of it.
And
No,
maintenance.
we didn't, not to lease it, we sold it to them.
We sold it to them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
guys.
what
It
I
was
understood.
originally a lease,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
We sold
it was carved out of it's part of the Parker, what is the name of the park down
Park-
there?
Parker Pool.
Parker Park.
Parker Park, yeah, so we deeded out, carved out the pool and gave it to the county.
Well, and Mike, the group runs it, the county does not run that pool. And we subsidize, if we're supposed to, $20,000 a year. They were charging there, so it's Flow East and that group that are actually running the pool itself. The county helps out capital improvements and things, but they're covering the lifeguards, the operations, chemicals. We provide water and power to them on it.
So
it's-
we're still giving money to them.
Yeah,
So the city's still contributing.
Well,
yes.
we were gonna do $20,000 last year, and it cost us about a couple $100,000 to run a pool. So we were getting a pool for 20 grand, plus the cost of utilities.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty complicated.
it is. We have, also in the bond program, we put design money for a brand-new pool at Bill Witt Park. So, there's none in District 5 right now, no pools, so that'll be a good enhancement.
Well, no public pools. No public-
Yeah,
I guess probably 20 years or so ago, the city went through and closed down a number of swimming pools that they own
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
parks. They closed one out in our area,
Yeah, on the one on Violet?
yes.
Yeah, Mike, yeah. I think Camacho, that's the one I showed you, I think the Camacho
Yeah.
purchased that property.
Okay.
And
Oh,
he
yeah.
filled
There
it
was
in.
a city pool there.
That was a
Camacho
city
did.
pool.
okay.
He Camacho did.
Yeah, he did.
They're a nice asset to have, for the park, in the park systems. You can spend a whole day in a park doing either field activity, then use the pool, then go to the barbecue pit. One day we're gonna be there to that.
They're expensive.
They are, yeah.
They're expensive, but I think they're necessary because we are surrounded by water. And, the pool I visited most, besides an auditorium, is a Greenwood pool, in Councilman Barrera's district. And, it's besides the auditorium, it's one of our only Olympic-sized pools that we have in the city. And so I think it's important that we, that takes, if it was my choice, I would do that pool first in trying to get it. So but I think it's important for every kid in this city to know how to swim. And
I
so
agree.
it's important.
Okay, move on to the final one about census data and demographics. Data is gonna be coming out when, Peter? The census data to the council?
The census data, so I have, I gotta find out with our staff about when the next, census data shipment, if you will, is coming to the city. We got a big picture thing recently, but, we'll get more detailed data, probably down to the zip code level. And then we'll have that conversation about potential city council redistricting. We know that a lot of new housing starts are happening in City Council District 5, and so, there may be, based on the census data, desire of the council to look at redistricting city council district boundaries.
Questions about that? All right, so to wrap up, covered a lot of terrain yesterday. We spent a lot of time in the morning about the group, trying to recognize sort of where the group is, establish some guidelines. Much of what you captured yesterday, I'll be summarizing and sending that back to you, get a chance to review that. There's still some work to be done, I think, around your guidelines, but a lot of it was about the group itself, sort of a self-examination, an x-ray for some of you painfully slowly, trying to just reflect on what you're doing as a group of people, all with the best of intentions, trying to help build a stronger Corpus Christi community. Then yes.
Patrick, I apologize, but
That's okay.
I failed to mention something in the infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
One where one of the priorities for me personally is to continue with progress on the regional parkway.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay,
You mentioned
so,
that yesterday.
And, you know, that one just helped my district. It would also, you know, lead to a second crossing over to the island. So I want to make sure that it's, you know, it's done in pieces. If you did it all at once, it'd be like a $400 million expense, and we'd need a lot of help from TxDOT because a lot of it's outside the city limits currently, and it's even on King Ranch, some of the property that the regional parkway would go on. But it's important for mobility, not only on the south side, but also on the island.
Peter, is that in the queue as far as the parkway the design? or-
Yes, it is in terms of, it's in the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization's short, long-term funding schedule. And then we've worked with Councilman Hernandez on it. I think the full council saw some of the maps when we were doing the bond program discussion. So Councilman Hernandez has been a champion for it, actually helped advocate at the MPO a reallocation of money, right?
Right, it was a 20-year, it was out 20 years, got it pushed up to where we get some funding in the 10-year range for the environmental studies and going forward. It's gonna be a project that's out. I mean, I'll be off council long before they break ground. You know, hopefully, but I'd like to lay the groundwork because there's a lot of growth out there. We have a new Del Mar Community College campus out there. We need to get people off out to the backside onto a highway, like in this case it's Crosstown Highway, the Highway 286, so they can get traffic out there, so they can get to work if they work at the refineries or if they work at Exxon or wherever they may go.
Yeah.
We need to have better mobility, and we got to start planning now for that mobility. I don't want to be like Austin where they're trying to catch up, right? So it's better to start thinking about, you know, what we need in for the future.
So, and then yesterday, we spent some time on, as we transitioned, about the practices of healthy governing bodies, the visibility you have, so big ecosystem and the what you do and how you do it. You had your homework. Today, we focused on the mission. It sounds like there's an appetite to maybe restart the mission at some point. Don't know that yet, but it sounded like there was an appetite. And I'm remiss, Peter gave an extensive review yesterday about all the projects, 6 pages of projects that are in the queue that are going to come back before you for design specs or awarding construction or a policy change or an adoption or adaptation of something. So that really, as you look at that list, that's going to drive many of your future agendas for the foreseeable future. We referenced that list again this morning as you were talking about some of those items. Had a good conversation this morning about water, which is still out there that you're going to have to, this is a really bad pun, but really going to have to flush out all those different options. And I think part of that is, and I can hear in your voices some stress and strain about that, at some point when you're trying to solve community issues, as you all know, those who've been on council a while and those that are, you know, maybe not a little bit more newer to the role, there's always some level of risk. You're trying to mitigate the risk, but you're not going to be able to remove 100% of the risk. There's no guarantees. And you're trying to make sure that your acumen is high and your proficiency is high and the expertise that you talked about is high and the input is high to try to make those decisions. But you're always weighing the circumstances. Some things are more linear than others, but when you're getting into essentially a new business, in some respects, you're trying to weigh that. But waiting longer doesn't always solve it, and that's what happens to councils. They wait too long, as you talked about earlier. Let's not wait too long about those things. So I think you're going to have to sort of hold yourself accountable to say, move, we have enough information, what is it that we want to do, and move forward or decide not to do it. And at some point, you're going to come at that intersection, whenever that might be. And that's going to be on the horizon about a lot of things, whether it's about the pool construction, whether it's about a park, economic development, all these topics, you come at the intersection. Things don't always kind of resolve themselves by waiting. Some things get more complicated. And as many of you have said the last day and a half, some of the things you inherited as council were things that previous councils had not dealt with. So you're trying to remedy the past, live in the present, and plan for the future, which is commendable. But sometimes the past and the present tend to dominate the time and attention, and the future's arriving every day. So, final thoughts as we wrap up today. I'm sorry that we went a little bit longer today. I didn't want to cut off that conversation this morning about water because I thought you were hitting your groove. And sometimes you just have to be able to know when you're, for me, have to know when the group is hitting that groove, to be silent and let you find that. Because I thought you were gaining some momentum. So I apologize if we went a little bit longer today. Yeah.
You know, one thing more administrative in nature, you know, as you were giving a lot of these updates, and I know I appreciate everybody's concern for my family yesterday, but I know I missed out. But is there a possibility of you providing us a rolling agenda? I know other public agencies do that, so that way we could see what's on the horizon and we could kind of have an idea of that way of what direction you're moving in. Because a lot of times you're here giving us an update and you're already on it. And that way we see that. I know, but like I said, other public agencies that do it, other communities that I deal with also do it. So if the rest of the council agrees to that, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think if I'm understanding you, Councilman, 2 years ago I instituted for the staff a forecast of what's coming on the city council agendas over, I think, a 3-month period. And it's so that we know, the staff knows what are the big policy or big purchase or big items going to city council. It helps us to manage council meetings so we don't have heavy council meetings and then a council meeting with no big issues, right? From a council standpoint and a staff standpoint, being able to manage the business. So we can share that with the council if you'd like, once a week. We produce it and it's updated through the week. I review it with my team every Monday morning after we review the draft agenda.
Yeah, they do that in San Antonio, don't they?
Yeah, that's where I stole the idea from. So we do that in San Antonio, and they also, San Antonio sends it to the council along with the agenda. So when Holly would send the link out electronically, when she does with the agenda, we can attach that document to give the council a perspective of what's coming up in the next 3 months.
That would be
That was
awesome.
useful for the council up there, so,
That would be awesome.
okay.
Final thoughts for today. Impressions, reactions?
I just want to say, I thought this was very good. I think it's something the council needs to do at least on a yearly basis. Mayor, I want to thank you for putting this together. I think this was really helpful. It allows us to have a free, discussion of things that we're concerned about. So appreciate your facilitation
Thanks
of
for the
the
opportunity.
process, and I thought it was really good.
Good, thank you. Yeah, as when I spoke to you on the phone, I let you know that, the benefit of this is to have a good exchange of ideas that you don't always get a chance to do at council meetings.
Yes.
Because council meetings are more of a drill.
Yeah.
What's next? So this gave you a chance to talk about things you don't always get a chance to talk about in a way you don't always get a chance to talk about them. It's hard to be in a community problem solver. You have to use some level of creativity and critical thinking. And that's what I think you saw on display yesterday and today was a good exchange of ideas. So thank you, Councilmember. Other responses or thoughts as we wrap up today and let you be on your way? Impressions?
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. Yeah, did you have something? Oh,
Thank you.
Raised your, yeah, the point was to bring us all together, and I don't want to reiterate everything, but, to try and get, everyone, for us to really know how we can work together, right? To move forward towards what we're establishing, knowing what Peter's already working on. I just love what you said at the onset was, what was it? Peter can't, or your city manager can never, he can't run in 9, but there was a little cliche there. What was it?
Peter's a pretty good dancer, so I hear, but he can't dance 9 different ways.
He can't dance 9 different ways. We'd like to ask him.
Can't?
We'd like to see him try. Tap dance.
I'm not a good dancer.
A bunch of prima donnas. And that's very true. And Patrick, so thank you. I'm glad though that you started with that. Because in the same way that, he can't. And Peter doesn't have some treasure chest of billions of dollars. We all want everything, right, for our districts. We all want everything best for this city, but we've got to do it responsibly, and that's what he has to implement, is what is it we want to do as a whole. That said, everyone has their individual district goals that you should work on, because you need to be able, and by the way, I'll need that for State of the City. What is it you're accomplishing? What is it you've accomplished in your district? Because we have to brag about that. Like we said earlier, we have to let people know, and the State of the City is the perfect place to do
Yes.
that, to really highlight everyone on this council, what in your district, what individually, what goals are you reaching, have you reached? And then there's, and you said this too, there's the group.
Yeah.
We have group goals, and then everyone should have their own goals that they accomplish, because Roland runs for District 3 alone. I don't sit next to Roland and run with him, nor does Gil, nor does Ben, nor does Bill. It's Roland by himself. Roland has to stand there and make the case, here's what I've done for my district, and then here's what I've done for the city. So I think that's so important, and I want to help everyone do what I can. There's so many issues that we share across the board that I have been part of as a council member and now as mayor. But I also have to say, what have I done as mayor? What have I achieved? So I'm really excited for us moving forward with all the things we've discussed. I think it's very clear. And thank you very much for the emphasis you put on water.
So I'll end with another food analogy. Yesterday I talked about every community has the same ingredients, and you get a chance to recreate your recipe, which in some respects you're always doing, refreshing that recipe. A lot of councils have a big appetite till they see the menu. And then they want to just go through the drive-through. But it's hard to build a strong community when you're always going through the drive-through. So think of yesterday and today as you're increasing your capacity to build a stronger, more vibrant community. If these items were easily solved, you would have already done them. So the nature of what you're talking about yesterday, and especially today, there's a lot of perspectives. And you're trying to blend those together in a collegial, professional sense of fellowship and collaboration.
I like the gym analogy better.
Okay, then go eat, then go work out. That's the thing.
Mayor, I forgot to mention this, in regards to swimming. Veterans Memorial High School is having a swim raiser this Tuesday, May 25th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Nauditorium for Collins Hope. Jasani Smith Foundation is also participating, and there will be to promote drowning awareness and water safety. So, but that's, again,
When is it again?
it is Tuesday, May 25th, from 4 to 6 p.m.
Can you have Rebecca send us something?
Yeah.
We do a media release on that, probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you send
definitely.
that to us?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll issue a media
6
release.
p.m. Tuesday, isn't that?
Okay?
Okay,
So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Roland, is that Mr. Longoria? Or no?